Welcome, my friends. Welcome to my world. I'm your host, Kevin Rutherford. It is Thursday, April 27th. It is the Traveling Road Show today. I'm somewhere on the West Coast staring at the ocean today. Still working this morning. We are here live. It is a free-for-all. Jump in right now and join us. Phone lines are open. 855-950-3835. I'm on a new mobile setup that I'm testing this week as well. So we're probably going to be doing a lot of these shorter trips. Now, this one's going to be at least a week, but I'll taking a long weekend. So no show tomorrow, no show Monday. I'll be back on Tuesday. Wednesday may be my last day of the show from the road, and then we'll be back. So 2 days off from the show. Rest of the time we're here, we are testing some mobile technology. So far, it was a little wonky setting up this morning. I had a couple of moments of panic. Thought I might not be able to pull this off, and then it all came together. So looks like we're here. Everything seems to sound good right now. Looks like we do have some calls coming in. Go ahead and jump in and join us. It is a free-for-all. No guests today, no theme. Totally up to you. 855-950-3835. I guess I do have kind of a theme I want to talk about. I won't spend a lot of time on it. If calls start coming in, we'll get to them. Kind of has to do with the what's going on with Tucker Carlson and censorship and everything else that's going on. You know, I've been watching Tucker for a lot of years. I like a lot of what he does. I think he's one of the hardest working journalists, really. All of his documentaries, the extra shows that he does. I tend to agree with most of his positions, and he was considered probably the most controversial mainstream host, and yet I didn't really see this coming. I don't know. I guess when you think when you get to number one, you might have some sort of protection, but I guess not. There's a lot of speculation on why. And I'm not sure that we'll ever know why. I'm not sure that Tucker will ever know why. And just like always in the media, you never get a chance to talk about it on the air. This happens when you get off the air, and you will never go back on the air to ever talk about it or explain it unless you go back on the air somewhere else. And Tucker will be back somewhere. I posted a short video that he did last night, 2.5 minutes or so, where he talks about the truth. That's kind of the theme of the 2.5 minutes. He just talks about the truth, and then at the end he says, "I'll see you soon." He posted some tweets with Alex Jones. I need to go do some more research about Alex Jones. Honestly, I know almost nothing about him other than all the headlines I always see about he claims Sandy Hook didn't really happen. That's him, right? I think. Which, I don't know, that seems a little odd on the surface, but I'm not going to really make any judgment till I go do some more research. So my impression of Alex Jones, and like I said, I know almost nothing about him. My impression, though, is he's pretty far out there with some of his theories. I'll go do some reading and figure it out. But that may be an interesting clue as to where he's going. Whatever he does right now, tweets, videos, whatever they might be, they all have meaning. He's not going to randomly post a picture of himself with somebody because he ran into them. Everything he posts right now is going to have meaning. So the fact that not only did he post with Alex Jones, the very next tweet and post was with Alex Jones' wife. So there's something going on there. I'm going to go figure out what Alex Jones is all about. But this idea of truth. We posted something the other day. I want to get back to this. Where is this? Where did I lose it? I just had it here a second ago. Oh, there it is. I had this idea, and I made this list, and then I gave it to Lisa, and she made this awesome graphic. You got to go look at this. On the top it says, they lied about. And then I started a list of all the things they've lied about. And we could argue whether or not they lied or they just didn't know. And the more I look at it, the more I think they lied. Maybe at some point they didn't know, but then when they knew, they continued the lie. So here's the list. Tobacco, mercury, opioids, aluminum, talcum, sweeteners, saturated fats, GMOs, raw milk, cholesterol, fluoride, and glyphosate. And here we go. I made this list, and I can't believe I forgot one. I could throw in seed oils. That's another huge lie. They still continue to lie that today. The Heart Association still gives out that, well, they don't give it out. They charge a fortune for it, and there's the answer right there. Follow the money. If you have a product with a toxic seed oil and no animal fats, you get the Heart Healthy seal. They're still lying about that. So we have to redo this whole list now. I have to go back. And I'm sure we could find more. I've been talking about this kind of stuff for a long time. The last several years, it's really been a big topic. And yet, I don't know. Yet when I look at this list right now, I think, what are we thinking? Why would we believe anything our government tells us? Anything. Really, when this is their track record, when you look at it like this, how did they not know? Do we really believe that we could just say, well, they just didn't know? Tobacco. Come on. Did we ever think that it would be good to burn vegetable matter and inhale it into our lungs? Did we ever think that would be a good thing? And then to do that over and over and over and over hundreds or thousands of times and not expect that might do something? And yet we used to have commercials with doctors talking about Camel being the best cigarette. Doctors talked about health benefits of cigarettes. Did we really think putting heavy metal like mercury into our teeth was a good idea? So is it really excusable to say we didn't know? I'm not sure that it is. We should have known. And I think we probably did know. Well, here's one. Number 3 on the list. We absolutely knew. We knew for a long, long time that opioids were horribly addictive. The first opioid, opium, that's where the word comes from, opioids. Well, technically the word opioid is a grouping of both natural opium derivatives and synthetic opioid drugs that we've created. That's what the term opioid covers, both natural and synthetic. The original was opium. We had problems with opium in the 1800s. The Chinese opium dens, and then they imported it or exported it over to us, and we had a huge problem in the early 1900s with opium dens in this country. We absolutely knew how addictive these were up until, when did this start? I think it was like 1996 when Purdue Pharma brought out OxyContin. I think I've got the year right. And doctors would not prescribe opioids. They just wouldn't. They were reserved for end-of-life, mostly cancer patients. And even then, I remember this. I went through this with my mother in, would have been 1980, late 80s. And she was dying of cancer, and they gave her methadone. So yes, it was an opioid for pain, but methadone doesn't create the same kind of cravings. That's why they use methadone to help people get off of heroin. It's like Suboxone. Same thing. They are opioids, but they don't create the high. They don't create the euphoria, but they will block the pain. It's kind of like the difference between cannabis and hemp. They don't have the euphoria factor. They won't get you high. So we knew that. So even for cancer patients, when they did use opioid-based products, many times it was methadone. But the idea was, if somebody's at the end of their life and they're in so much pain, who cares if they get hooked on this? You're going to keep them on it until they die anyway. So the opioids was absolutely a lie right from the start. There was a huge campaign to convince doctors that opioids were not addictive. Now, we could blame that all on Purdue Pharma, except it's the FDA that is supposed to stop things like that from happening. So the FDA fell down on that one and lied. Aluminum in things like deodorant and vaccines and all of the aluminum we use around our food and packaging and cooking, and that was a bad idea. Still is a bad idea, and yet we still use aluminum all the time. People use it every day. You shouldn't. You should look around and really get aluminum out of your life wherever you can. I've done enough screening of heavy metal testing on humans to know that every test I've ever seen, including my own, came back extremely high in aluminum. Aluminum causes all kinds of weird health issues. This is one of the, when we refer people out to Dr. Wolfson, there's a couple reasons. One, he does a lot more blood testing, heavy metal testing, mold testing, some of those weird kind of background issues that just a lot more specialized. But this is one we've identified. Talcum, unbelievable. Products like Johnson's baby powder and shower to shower and all these products, they turned out to cause cancer, but it's not because talcum caused it. It's because these products were contaminated with asbestos. Now, we know how horrendous asbestos is, and yet it was somehow allowed to be in these products, and I think it was a contaminant, but where's the FDA again? They're supposed to be there to make sure this kind of stuff doesn't happen. Well, here we go. And here's another one. It just continues the lie, and we know they're lying. All of the artificial sweeteners, the FDA again, they're toxic. We know they're toxic. We've known they've been toxic forever. I could go through every one of these. I'm not going to. I think we've got calls starting to come in. You can go check this out. I'll just go through it real quick again. Saturated fats, GMOs, raw milk, cholesterol, fluoride, glyphosate. I'm going to add seed oils to this list. Oh, here's something fun we can do today. I'll challenge everybody else. Give me something else the government lies to us about. And then my point in all this is, again, I think Tucker Carlson's a pretty intelligent guy. I think he's a very intelligent guy. Would I say I agree with everything? I kind of doubt it. I'm trying to think of something maybe I disagree with him on, but there aren't that many. I get the feeling that his thoughts about Trump are pretty similar to mine, or mine are pretty similar to him. Either way, I don't think he likes him as a person. I think he'd rather see another good candidate. But if it came down to voting for him, I think I've made up my mind this time. I won't vote for him in the primaries. I'll vote for whoever I think is the best candidate. If he wins in the primaries, I will vote for him in the general election this time. I haven't the last two times. I've been very transparent about my feelings and how I vote, but I've changed my mind this time. In the primaries, I'll pick who I think the best candidate is. When it comes to the election, if Trump's on the ticket, I'll vote for him. So if I think that Tucker Carlson is this intelligent, and I really do, and I agree with most of his positions, and I really do, if it turns out that wherever he lands, if he really starts pushing stuff even further to the right, to like some of maybe this Alex Jones stuff, I'm not sure what I'll do. I guess I'll listen to what he has to say, and I'll do some more digging and some more research, and who knows, maybe some of the really, really out there stuff is also going to turn out to be true. The patterns are certainly starting to shape up that way. The other thing I'm keeping an eye on, what the hell's going on in Sudan? Sudan? Why are we talking about Sudan? And here's what bothered me, the headline I saw this morning, that I guess there's a lot of civil unrest going on in Sudan. I guess a couple of Americans have died. I think 2 I saw on one headline. We have a lot of citizens over there and government employees, and the headline I read was the rest of the world is getting their citizens out of Sudan except us. We are claiming it's too dangerous. Yesterday we were talking about a lack of testosterone in this country, and it is really serious. Too dangerous for the United States military? That those words should never be uttered. We dominated the planet. We have always, since World War II, we've become the world's police. Not that I like that. I don't think we should be the world's police. I don't think we should be stationing troops in most parts of the world and leaving them there the way we've done it. I don't believe we should get into every skirmish in every little country around the world. But if we're going to be in these places, and we will always have embassies, then we damn well better be able to protect the people we have there. I am just shocked and appalled and disgusted that we would say it's too dangerous. Again, we should never say that. There should be no place on this planet that it is too dangerous for the United States military to go in and get our people out. And every one of those soldiers knows that they may give their life doing that. Yes, we may lose soldiers. That's how it works. That's why it's supposed to be a sacrifice to serve your country. You're supposed to take that risk that you may die. You may die to save another U.S. citizen, getting them out of a hot zone like this. That's the point. That's why we call it serving. But then when we have leaders who say, I'm sorry, it's too dangerous. It's the whole woke thing. It's got to end. All right, I'm going to get some phone calls before I should not go off on rants like that. I'm on vacation. Let's have a little fun, or not. Let's go to the phones. We're going to get started in Mississippi today. Mark, welcome to the program.
I just canceled my vacation to the Sudan, so there's that.
Well, there you go.
So, yeah, exactly. Well, why would you go there? Anyway, did you see yesterday evening? I finished at the Laurel, finished working. I opened up Twitter and looked at it. First thing I saw, Carrie Lake's out there. We should just cancel the primary. Cancel the primary and just anoint Trump. Let's go with that. We don't need to have a primary. Like, I think she's insane. Then you were talking about Alex Jones. Last weekend, I hadn't listened to Mercola in a while, so I pulled up his iTunes podcast, looked in there. There's an interview with Alex Jones a couple of weeks ago. I'm like, that sounds interesting. So I listened to it. I suggest you listen to it. It's about an hour. And Mercola goes through it and asks him questions I've never heard him ask before. And it's really interesting and it's enlightening. So I'm not going to ruin it for you by trying to spread a story a third level. Word of mouth. Just spend an hour listening to it.
Well, thanks for the recommendation. That's a good place for me to start because I'm so familiar with Dr. Mercola. That's a great place for me to start. Like I said, I've seen the name. I know who he is. I know he's a big part of that whole Sandy Hook conspiracy thing. And other than that, I have just kind of ignored it. I have no idea. I've never watched a podcast. I've never read anything he's written.
He's got a book coming out in a couple of months, and he one of the things he was talking about in there, which I'd never heard him say, and I'm kind of like listening to him every once in a while or whatever, was how he came to his ideas about what's going on in the world. And basically, he said he would go to the University of Texas Library because he's from Austin, and he would read, and he just read everything, and he would read these academic papers about what these academics would say. Well, now, and he would tell everybody, and they're like, "Oh, you're crazy. That's a conspiracy or whatever." Well, that's what they believe, and well, here they are right now happening. And that's where he got everything that he believes. That's what he says. What he told Mercola, and I've never heard him say that. It was just by reading these papers and these journals of these academics, because they're the ones that sit there and write about all this. Years ago, I mean, they were for population control back in the 60s, and people were like, "Oh, that's crazy." Now here we got Bill Gates and all the, Klaus Schwab and all of that, and they're talking about population control. I was going
to jump in and say, when I first came across Dr. Mercola and started looking at some of the things he was pushing hard about, they seemed like crazy conspiracy theories, and it was way out there, and yet every single issue, every one that Dr. Mercola has brought up about health, he has been completely correct about. Everything from vaccines to fluoride to vitamin D and sunshine, and every single issue that he was called a whack job, a right-wing conspiracy theory, the biggest spreader of misinformation in the country, and he's been absolutely correct about every one of them.
You were talking about detoxing and all of that. Dr. Daniel Pompa has a lot of good information. He's big on that. I'm sure you know who he is.
Yeah.
He might be somebody you'd get on your show and talk to.
Yeah.
Anyway, I originally called in about other things that you talked about a week ago, and I couldn't call in. One of the things was, before I got into owning my own company and, hauling cars and whatnot, I had to raise kids because I had a crazy ex-wife that was non-existent. So one of the jobs I had, I worked for AmeriGas in the office. It was like an office-based job. I mean, you read that email, I'll send it to you again.
Yeah.
Well, after I got out of that, I got into a company. They're no longer, they were a third-generation owned company, McKenzie Tank Lines out of Tallahassee. I was their safety guy in the Houston area. And you talk about, all those drivers have been there. We talk about how the old man knew what he was doing, the kids don't know anything. And the kids just ran it into the ground, third generation. And in the middle of that, I was like, I'm not paying you, you're not paying me enough or whatever. So I went to work for 2 weeks. I quit. Went to work for Schwerman. I can't even pronounce it. They're out of Milwaukee. It's a tank company, one of the oldest tank companies, and they're third generation on. And It was absolutely horrible. I lasted 2 weeks, and I called McKinsey. I said, to call the president. I said, "Can I come back? I made a mistake." Yeah, you can come back. Well, they were getting me for cheap, so they let me come back. But that's two companies, so they're still in business. Schlerman is, but McKinsey ended up selling to another third generation company. They sold out to Grondike, which a buddy of mine worked for them, and that's another company that's been like,
yep.
These third generation, they get a hold of it's like they don't know what it took to make it. And
it's such a common pattern. I think what happens with the second, now sometimes it's the second generation that wipes it out. And I'll tell you when that happens. If the first generation was successful early enough, you get some of these 20-somethings that hit it out of the park and they're, multimillionaires before they're 30, then the second generation is going to ruin it. But what normally happens is the first generation, while they're struggling to build that company, has their first generation of children. They are part of the struggle and they see what it takes, and they usually do a pretty decent job. But then by the time the third generation is born, the money's there, it's successful. We spoil our kids because it just feels like the right thing to do. We want to, and it's bad for them. And we have to fight against that urge to spoil them and give them everything we didn't have. And if we don't fight that urge, this is what happens. The third generation is so entitled, they don't understand the struggle, and they will destroy the company. Now, having said this so many times and given so many examples, I want to give the exception to the rule. Story I'm very familiar with. I love this story. I think I should write this down somewhere. I don't know why I always have a hard time remembering this. I believe the original trucking company was Cherokee. I think. Sure, it was one that had a Native American name. Anyway, first generation, the grandfather, starts the trucking company, grows it. Second generation, the father takes it over, grows it even more. Third generation, 3 sons, did a fantastic job with it. Now, they grew up after the success. When they were growing up, there was lots of money. I mean, it was a family-run company. It grew. They grew up in wealth. But these 3 were not entitled at all. I know the family well. It's just an amazing family. And these 3 were raised right. They were working in that trucking company from the time they could walk. They've told stories about breaking down tires and lubing trucks and moving freight on the dock, and they were required to do every job in that company. They took it over. It was so successful. They got a big offer. They sold it. They now run ATBS. That's the Amons that run ATBS. Great family, great company, and they are the exception to the rule. The third generation was even more successful than the first 2.
Well, the guy that was running the bank lines when I was there, he was grandson. They sent him to school from Tallahassee to Dallas. He stayed there through.
Uh-oh. Mark, we're losing you. I think we may have lost you. You know what I'm going to do? I'll put you back in the queue for a second and see if maybe we can save that line. And we'll go to Iowa. Brandy, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Kevin. So I don't know about you, but as far with Tucker gone, I have a lot of suspicion about the hosts that are there now. Are they not able to say what they want to say? And I say that because on the day that he was gone, they made a small little blurb about it. But when I was listening to Laura Ingraham, I've never known Laura Ingraham to be animated like Tucker is. And it's almost like it didn't feel right. And now anytime I listen to Fox, I have that suspicion that they're censored. And I can't listen to it.
We have to separate 2 things, because you had mentioned the fact that they don't talk about Tucker leaving. That's a separate issue That's how media works. Like I mentioned earlier, any media personality will never be told their show is over and then allowed to go back on the air. That never, ever happens. And that was the case here. Tucker signed off on Friday. So he said, I'll see you on Monday. And then we didn't see him on Monday. So he did not know it was coming. There may have been stuff going on in the background, and he may have been suspicious, but he did not know it was coming. Same with me. I mean, I made the comment on the air. The decision was made before my show was over that day that I was done. I was told after the show I was done, and there's no way I was ever going back on the air. And if you listen to any other shows on the channel, were they allowed to talk about it? No. If somebody calls and asks, they get hung up on. That's just how media works. So separate that out. I will promise you they are being censored about Tucker. They are not allowed to comment on this. So they are absolutely being censored on that. But we know that always happens in media. Now, are they being censored on other topics? Yeah, absolutely. And Tucker was the one that pushed those boundaries the most, and we see what happened. You know, he pushed the January 6th thing the most. He pushed the Dominion voting pretty hard, although so did Ingram and, you just mentioned his name.
Hannity.
Hannity, yeah, both of those two did. Tucker pushed the big pharma thing less than a week before. I almost wonder if that isn't the real issue here.
Yeah, and then also Donald Trump, he won't have a whole lot of places to make himself known.
Yeah,
so to speak.
Yeah. So there's no doubt that everybody is censored in mainstream media. So that's why it's going to be interesting now. We've seen people like somebody I had almost forgotten about. We were in the car yesterday, and Lisa was looking for something to listen to, and she found Megyn Kelly. She used to be on Fox. I
love her.
I haven't thought about Megyn Kelly in years. And then you think about Bill O'Reilly and Glenn Beck and all of these conservative hosts that were all canceled. They were taken off their big platform. And here's the difference. You can say the left wing gets rid of their people too because Don Lemon's gone. But here's the big difference. If you're a conservative talk show host or commentator of some kind, you get canceled when you get too big. The left, it's the opposite. You get canceled when you should. You get canceled because you suck and your audience is too small and you don't bring in enough ad revenue. That's when you get canceled on the left, and you should. That's the way it works. But on the right, it's the opposite. You get too big, too popular. That's when you're likely to get canceled.
Yeah. It just feels like there's this huge hole at 7 o'clock Central Time. What do you watch?
I'm in no way trying to compare myself to the people I was just talking about, but we could say the same thing. When I started at XM, I was the new guy with no experience, and they stuck me on the weekends. Then when I did a pretty decent job on the weekends, they gave me midnights. And after 10 years, I got moved to a primetime slot, and then guess what happened? I got canceled.
Yeah. Well, I just feel that a lot of people probably feel a lot like I do. It's like, how do you listen to anything that those hosts are going to say now? And just got that. What are they not telling you now? What are they not saying?
It's like I said, it's like when I go through that list of all the things we absolutely know they lied about, and at least half the list or more they continue to lie about. I don't know why we believe anything they say. It's almost like we really are going to have to tear the damn system down and start over.
Yeah. Well, that's all I wanted to say.
All right. Thanks for the call. Let's we'll continue on here. We're going to head off to Illinois. Pete, welcome to the program.
Am I up?
You are. What's on your mind today?
Hey, Kevin, I want to throw something at you. I'm sitting on the couch today, and I'm leased onto a carrier. And, lately, what they've done is they've hired on a bunch more owner-operators. And so that's saturated our load board. So now every other day I sit here and I have no load. So I want to explore some things with you to see if you can give me some ideas. I've got another truck that just sits around. What is it like legally for me to use that truck, on the days when I'm not working with this other company? You know what I mean? How can I make that truck
how are
work
you
for
going
me?
to use it is what you have to figure out. What I mean by that is if you are going to lease to another carrier, that's going to be a problem. And I'm not even sure I completely understand this. We have to go all the way back to when there were regulations, when we had financial regulations in the trucking industry. So prior to 1980, basically, we used to do something called trip leasing. So the way, are you familiar with the way Authority worked back then prior to 1980?
No.
Okay,
No.
so I'll explain it. And even if you were, I'd explain it for everybody else. So this is how crazy the trucking industry was back then. We talk about going and getting authority, right? And it's just something we do, but nobody really understands. And this is why I say this authority thing should go away. It should have gone away back in the 1980s. I don't know why they continued this. But prior to 1980, the reason you had to go to the federal government to get authority to be a trucking company was the federal government controlled who could be a trucking company. And the idea was if we wanted to build these national trucking companies that were capable of moving freight all around the country, the thought was you can't allow too much competition or they will all fail. It's too expensive to get started, and we need to protect these companies. So we're going to let a limited number of trucking companies in the market. We'll let them become successful. And then in order for a new trucking company to exist, to have authority, the shippers had to go to shippers and get letters from them to say, we need more trucks. And it got even more specific than that. It was in lanes. We need more trucks between Columbus, Ohio, and Atlanta, Georgia. And if you could convince the government that enough shippers needed more trucks, then they might give you the authority. Or they would just say, no, you can't become a trucking company. Hey, imagine that. Imagine if you wanted to start a sandwich shop and the government said, no, there's too many sandwich shops already. That's basically socialism, but we allowed it in this case. The utilities were the same way, the electric and gas and phone companies, the airlines, the rail wasn't, I don't believe. But so, and again, whether the idea was right or not, we did it. But at some point we said, this is not a free market. These businesses are now stable, so we deregulated them, which I think was a wonderful idea. So what would happen back then is you would, because you couldn't go get authority, you would lease to a carrier that had authority. That's how this whole thing started, this whole leasing to somebody. Then if that carrier that you leased to gave you a load from Cleveland to Atlanta, Georgia, like we just said, because they had authority, well, now you're in Atlanta, and if you want to get back to Cleveland, guess what? That trucking company might not have authority on the same lane, but in the opposite direction. So what you would do is you would just trip lease that day to a carrier who did have that authority. And we used to carry magnetic signs in our trucks, and we'd slap a new magnetic sign up there on who we were leased to. So that's what a trip lease was. It was just a temporary lease to somebody that had that authority. For some reason, we can't do that anymore. And I've asked the question, why not? Why can't we still do that? And I've been told it has something to do with insurance is the best answer I've ever gotten. But I've never had anybody explain to me why, if my carrier is slow, why I can't just trip lease to another carrier like we used to. Because we did trip leases after all of this change, too. Prior to deregulation, you trip leased. After deregulation, we still trip leased. I was trip leasing in the 90s. And I don't remember why it went away. So that was a long answer to one of the problems you're going to face is if that truck is leased to someone, you have to cancel that lease and sign a lease with somebody else. And then the next day, if you wanted to pull a load for somebody else, you'd have to do it again. And most trucking companies don't want to go through this. So now what are the other options to put a truck, to work without that?
Well, I don't know if
go ahead.
I don't know if I explained it or not, but I have one truck leased onto this company. They've got their ELD equipment, installed. And so it's not really that truck that I want to use somewhere else. I have another truck.
Right. That's what I'm trying to get to. It's not leased to anybody, right?
It's just sitting there. Right.
So in order to move freight, I'm giving you the options on what you could do. You could lease it to somebody, but then if that company slows down, now you've got another truck and a driver sitting. Now, are you going to drive this truck?
I would want to use both trucks. If I don't have work one day with this company, I want to be able to hop into my other truck.
Okay.
And find work.
Okay, fine.
So I don't want to hire a driver. It's just for me.
That's fine. But so here's the risk. You lease it onto another carrier, and then they slow down. And now you're right back in the same position. So I'm trying to help us look beyond that and figure out what we can do so that doesn't happen. One option is to go get your own authority. Obviously, I don't think we want to mess with that. It's an expense. It's a lot more work. There's all kinds of things going on there. You could try to find a private carrier, somebody that ships their own products, and maybe find some work for it like that. But then, they may want that truck full time. Is it a good enough deal? Who knows? That's another option. Here's the simplest option. But it would require the most time from you to try to go find the work. You could simply haul exempt commodities that you don't need authority for. But you're probably, in this case, now you're going to most likely need another trailer type. So exempt commodities tend to be raw materials. Sand and gravel, all the aggregate stuff is all exempt. You don't have to have authority to move that stuff. Agricultural products, the raw, basic agricultural products that come off of farms, we don't need authority to move that. A lot of food products can be moved without authority. You'd have to go get the list of exempt commodities and what that means. See, and this is my point. In trucking, when I say, why do we have this authority crap anymore? Because deregulation should have eliminated the entire process of authority. And people push back on me. They're like, well, no, that's how the FMCSA does their safety. Well, so what? Every industry has safety. We don't have this authority. We might have had those two tied together. Separate them. But so the answers I always get never make any sense to me. Then we have this whole group of, and then it's all, well, it's safety. We don't need authority to have a safety program. And we exempt all kinds of trucks on the road from needing that authority. My point is, because we've deregulated, every truck should be exempt from having authority. If I want to go pull a load from ABC company down the street, why can't I? If I own a company pressure washing and I go into them and I say, hey, let me pressure wash your building, they can hire me on the spot. I don't need to go get the government's permission.
Yeah. Okay. So exempt. Okay, I didn't know about that. Exempt commodities. Okay, where would I find information like that?
FMCSA, DOT, you're just going to have to start doing searches. Remember, when it comes to compliance, I understand the big picture. I understand how authority worked, why we still have all this crap. I argue why we shouldn't have it. But when it comes to compliance, when it gets down to details, I don't know and I don't want to know. I can point you in the right direction. You're going to have to go dig and figure it out. Somewhere out there, though, and somebody will call us or send us a message. Somewhere out there is a list of exempt commodities.
Well, that was helpful already. That's going to give me some ideas on what to explore.
Here's another option. So for that extra truck, look up, spend a couple days doing some research on some local brokers in your area. Uh-huh. And many of those brokers will also have the authority that they can lease on just like you would with a carrier. Now, many times if you lease onto a broker, they don't really care if you work all the time. For them, it's just an extra truck that if they can use it once in a while, they're fine with that. Uh-huh. Whereas most carriers, if you sign on, they expect to have the truck available, a driver's assigned to it, they get to use it every day. Right. Landstar is another option. Landstar doesn't require you to run a truck every day. You can just sign it onto them and work it when you want.
Yeah, well, I've explored that already. From what I hear is that if you lease on to Landstar, you can't be leased on anywhere else. So if I have my current truck leased on to somebody,
I would verify that is absolutely true. If you're just hearing that at the liar's counter from somebody else, and I don't care if they say they've been at Landstar 35 years, many people misunderstand things like this. So I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm saying if somebody told me that, I would verify it.
Okay, all right. I'll pursue that. Because
I don't know that is true.
Okay, well, I'll pursue that too because I've considered that also.
Yeah, but
I just didn't, realize that.
You can do that same thing with a lot of brokers. A lot of brokers will lease trucks on, and many times they just don't care if that truck works or not.
And then let's say I'm leased on to another carrier, how does that work with the ELD keeping track that I'm staying legit?
You've got to figure that out. Most carriers.
So as long as I stay legit and can prove that, then there's no problem with running two ELDs?
So here's where my lack of ELD experience, but again, this is a compliance issue, so I wouldn't be up on this anyway. You're going to have to figure this one out, and some carriers may have policies. I mean, I'm trying to think back. I can remember, when you sign on to a new carrier, they want your last 7 days of log sheets, or there's different policies. Mm-hmm. So you're going to run into that. Some carriers are going to say, yeah, we can do it, but you've got to do this. Or again, those are the details you'll have to figure out as you get down to the nitty gritty on this.
Yeah. Hey, that's great. You've given me some ideas, and I appreciate it, Kevin. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for the call. Herschel, are you there this time?
I was here last time, but you wasn't.
Yeah, so...
Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so it's not perfect. I'm actually only getting you on the left channel for some reason, but I'll check with... let's see.
I don't want to be on the left. I want to be on the right.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. Now we know. It's the progressives. They're hacking me. That's what's going on here.
That's right, the bastards.
That was the clue. It's those damn liberals. The lefties are hacking us. All right, let me make sure everybody can hear us. Angie, are you hearing both of us now? And does Herschel sound okay? because the
Hello, Angie.
Angie. Oh, okay. So Angie says it
Angie.
sounds good. We'll go with it. It's a little weird. Oh, wait a minute. I just thought of something. You are in.
Oh, boy.
I was looking at the meters wrong, and then it just dawned on me. I am hearing you only in my right ear. So you are on the right side of things.
Ah, that's a good deal.
That's right.
That's a good deal.
So you know what?
So-
I know the listeners are probably had enough of technical issues and drops and all that stuff, and it's never going to clear up. It's part of doing stuff across the internet. But I'm a little tired of it. And then today, of course, we're on a new travel setup. So, but this is just part of what I've got to do. I'm actually pretty encouraged that we've had a couple of issues and we've been able to overcome them. That's a good sign.
That is a very good sign.
So what's on your mind today?
Well, you were talking here a while back about money market accounts against traditional passbook savings.
Yes.
So just for the hell of it, I called my local bank where I have my normal passbook savings that everybody has. Well, not everybody, but anyway.
Right.
So I looked on first thing I did is I looked on my bank app, where you can do transfers and deposits and everything.
Yeah.
And right now my current is like $54,000 in savings, and I looked and I got $2 interest last month. Like, hoo-ha. That won't even buy me a Happy Meal if I wanted one.
That's right. Yeah.
So I called them and I asked about their money market. And they said they do have one. It's a new thing for them because they're really a small country bank.
Right.
But they do have one. And they just started in February, and the APY, the APR,
right,
has stayed the same. And it's 3.56%.
Okay.
I said, okay. So I had them look me up, and they said, wow, you do have a pile of money in there. I said, yeah.
Yes.
I said, okay, let's hypothetical. Take $50,000 and extrapolate it out for 12 months. Well, your interest is paid monthly. I said, I know that, but extrapolate it out for a whole year. What kind of earning would it have in an entire year?
Right.
Because, you go through this all the time with the 2% factoring.
Right.
So 3.56, extrapolate it out for a year, $50,000, never changed the initial balance, would end up with $1,776 growth in interest.
Yes.
So holy shit. So that right there proves your factoring theory.
Yes.
If everybody wants to argue about that one.
So now
it really does. I was like, wow.
Let's take this math and the explanation one step further, because what you just asked them to do was correct. What you asked them to do was compound the interest. So a lot of times, and this is where they get all screwed up with the factoring, they look at it and say, oh, it's 3.5% of $50,000. No, it's not. It's it's 1/12 of 3.5% per 30 days, and some accounts can be compounded daily. This is where interest can get very confusing, because let me give a simple example. Let's say that we get back to this place where we've got 10% CDs again. I'm drooling, hoping that comes back. If we get to the point where we have 10% CDs and I drop $100,000 into a CD, now, technically I could say, well, I'm going to get $10,000 in interest for the year. Well, that's wrong. It's close. It's not a bad estimate, but it's wrong. Because if this is going to be compounded monthly, we now take the $100,000 and we take, let's call it 12% instead of 10, because the math is easier. Now, for the first month, we take 1% of $100,000, $1,000, and we add it. So now we have $101,000 in this account. So now in the second month, We now calculate 12% of 101,000, not 100,000. And now in the third month, we're going to calculate interest on a bigger number. That's compound interest. And that's how, when I tell somebody we started saving for a child when they were 9 years old and we only saved $70 a month and they're going to end up with $7 million, and they do the math and they're like, you're an idiot. They're only going to end up with, it's less than $1 million. And I'm like, no, that's not how this works.
That's why $125,000 to pull a number out of the sky mortgage, you pay $350 back.
Yes.
But your percentage is only 7
exactly.
or 6
right.
or whatever it is.
Yes, right. And most people don't understand either concept. They don't understand that they're going to pay that much for their house, and they don't understand why they're not getting, savings the way they should. Their savings isn't growing. They don't understand either concept. One works against them, one works for them. Guess which one they do more often? The one that works against them.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I just thought that was interesting, and I did ask about certificate of depression, to steal a line from Dave Ramsey.
Yes.
A 15-month one, 4.25 right now at my community bank.
That's not bad. Although, if all you're trying to do is... so there's two options here. One, I get it. You're being loyal to your local bank, and you should. That's a priority, especially a small-town bank.
Well, that's where the relationship is.
Exactly. Now, I could say if your mindset was, I just want to maximize return, then I would say, I know right now, Apple. I have an Apple credit card, and along with that Apple credit card, they offer me a savings account that right now is paying 4.5.
Oh, okay.
And that's a straight savings account, so no time limit. I'm not tying up my money. If I drop $100,000 into that savings account now, and then CDs go up, any day I want, I can just take money out of that account and buy CDs. Now, so everybody understands, once you buy a CD, you are locked into that time frame. Something I found out on Twitter yesterday? I didn't realize this. I always talk about this time when they had these 10% CDs, but I was just out of high school. I didn't understand the details on them. I talked to somebody on Twitter yesterday that works in finance, and he said he couldn't believe it. Into the 90s, he was still working with clients that had bought 20-year CDs at the top.
I remember hearing that.
I did not know they were selling 20-year CDs at those rates. And he said he's been working with clients that have just been dragging down 10% a year for 20 years. So that's something to keep an eye on this time. If we get up there, keep an eye out for it, and I will, and I'll certainly let everybody know that when the market's going to turn and those rates are going to start going back down again, that's when you go lock in those long-term CDs. Now I'm really excited.
I was just looking for a way to get a little bit of growth that you could see against getting basically nothing.
Right.
Because the passbook savings was like 0.005. Wow.
Oh, I know. It's
horrible.
Well, we do our business banking with Chase. And you know me, build relationships. And building relationships means sometimes you give up a little for that relationship. I have many examples of this. And people say, oh, I can't believe you're spending that much money on something. You could get it over here so much cheaper. I know I could. And it may even be the exact same product. But I do it because that's how you build relationships. They're give and take. If you expect them to treat you like you're something special, then you better treat them that way too. And sometimes that means you give up a better deal somewhere. That's why I asked you, What is your goal? Do you want to be loyal to this relationship? And if you do, that's excellent. But if you don't, and you say, no, look, I do plenty of business with them. I want to go grab this extra that I can get. And like I said, Apple right now, 4.5% on a savings account. The only requirement that I know of is that you have this credit card, which is no big deal. I never use mine. Kind of nice that I have it, and it works really well on my phone. But I probably only used it 3 times in 2 years. But I am looking at this now. I may move some money into that account, let it start getting that 4.5%, and start watching for CDs. And I might even see, if 6-month CD rates go up, I might grab a couple of those.
Well, I have my IRA set up to automatic draft out of that account monthly. Well, it's set up to is it 7,000 a year? I think it is now.
Yeah, I don't even try
7
to.
or 75.
I don't even try to.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
It's like $5.90 a month or something. If you max it, I'd have to look. I forget.
Yeah.
So I don't think you use ButcherBox anymore, but I still do.
Right? Yeah, I don't.
I saw something on there the other day that absolutely cracked me up, and I thought of you when I saw it. Yeah, you go on there and they say member deals, and you scroll through and see what they got.
Right.
One of the new products that I saw on there that I've never seen before is some kind of a marinade stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
But it said it was made with fermented soy. I'm like, oh yeah, that'll make it better for you.
Well, but,
fermented soy.
Herschel, believe it or not, that's actually a thing. And it does make it better.
Oh, I don't doubt it's a thing.
It actually
but does it make it good?
Well, in some cases it does. There are some fermented soy products. Natto is one of them. Now, I'm going to go back and, clarify that we're still working under some of our old beliefs about all of these compounds in plants that are supposed to be so good for us. You remember, we're shifting our beliefs about plants, and we're in that transition. It's hard, you look at these things and they go, oh, no, look, they're proven this compound in plants prevents cancer and cures cancer. And yeah, but there's also an awful lot of stuff in plants we know isn't so good. So this is just keep that in mind that we're still framing this. This product, Natto, has, all of these nutritional compounds that should be good for us. So a lot of people who will say don't eat soy will make the exception for fermented soy.
My food sensitivity test said soy was no good, so I don't want no part of it.
Yeah, you absolutely shouldn't. I don't either. I don't eat any of these products. But there is that belief or that theory that there are beneficial effects from fermented soy products.
Wow.
And there's a bunch of products out there that you wouldn't know it. Like I said, Natto. If you saw Natto in the store, you wouldn't know that was fermented soy. Setane, I'm not even sure if I'm pronouncing some of these things right, is fermented soy. There's another soup or broth that is a fermented soy. I forget what that's called. So actually, there are a lot of fermented soy products on the market.
I don't think I'm going to order any.
No, and I don't either. Like I said, I don't. And if it's on your sensitivity test, you absolutely shouldn't. But there are people who believe, and even people who think you shouldn't eat grain, shouldn't eat soy, all that stuff, they do make exceptions for fermented soy.
So you talk about baby back ribs all the time. They did have those now at ButcherBox.
Okay.
I know you're going to say a smoker, but I don't have a smoker. How do you cook a baby back rib? I went ahead and ordered some. How do you cook them?
So there's a couple ways you can do this here. If you want to get as close to authentic, smoked ribs as possible, you would use what kind of a grill or outdoor cooker do you have?
It's just a propane fired.
Okay.
Weber.
Actually, that's so. Here's what we're going to do. Do you know how to cook on indirect heat?
You set it on the shelf outside the grill and shut the lid. I don't know.
So here's what you're going to do. How many burners do you have in your propane grill?
It has 3. It's got a bottom rack and a small top rack.
So you're only going to turn on one burner. So we're going to turn on, say, the far left burner. We're going to put like some sort of cover on the grill itself over on the right side, as far to the right as we can get. And it could even be just foil. Just cover your grill plates with foil. You could put down a cast iron or something to block the heat from the bottom, so we don't get any heat coming up from the bottom, or we're blocking it. Then you're going to take your ribs and you're going to set them over there as far away from that burner as you can get them. And then you're going to bring the temperature in the grill somewhere between 195 and 225. And anywhere in that range is going to be fine, and your ribs are going to be away from the heat, and they're going to be unwrapped. They'll be seasoned and unwrapped. So you leave them at that temperature range, and they're not near the heat source. They're away from it. But the internal temperature of your grill is somewhere 200, 225 in that range. 3 hours. Oh, now you're also, do you know how to use like a smoker box on your grill?
No.
So go down to the hardware store, Ace, wherever, any place that sells grill stuff, and they'll have a little smoker box, a metal box, and then buy wood chips. So I love mesquite on ribs. It's my favorite. So you could buy a bag of mesquite wood chips. You soak the wood chips for an hour or so in water, or you can soak them in beer or wine or apple cider vinegar, and you can create a little more flavor in there. But you soak them, you put them in the box, and then you put the metal box on top of your propane or very near to that propane burner, and that's going to create smoke just like you were using wood.
I'll be damned. That's interesting.
So now you can pick out your wood flavors if you want to use cherry or oak or mesquite or pear or apple or whatever you want to use. And now you get your smoke flavor just like you were using a wood smoker. 3 hours at that temperature on the smoke. Then they come off the grill, and I wrap them in what's called pink butcher paper. And this is important. You can't use foil. Do not use foil. You will not get a good bark on your ribs. They will get soggy. So this pink butcher paper maintains the right temperature, but allows that bark to form. So we wrap it in the pink butcher paper, and then I take them in the house and put them in my oven for 1 hour at 350. And those are competition level ribs. As long as you got a good rub.
Interesting. I'd have to try that.
Now there's one other way. If we didn't have a grill that this would work on, or it's, the middle of winter in Ohio and it's minus 20, you can do the exact same thing in your oven. They go in your oven at 195 to 225, unwrapped. You've put your rub on them. They're seasoned. We don't really want to try to use a smoker box inside your oven because you're going to smoke out your house. So what we do in this case is I just have a barbecue sauce that I make myself, and it gets some extra liquid smoke.
Okay.
But you can do this entire process in your oven. You get really, really nice tender ribs. You can even get a nice bark on them if you use the pink butcher paper. You just don't get the smoke flavor. You don't get the smoke ring. So then I just make up for the smoke flavor in my barbecue sauce. And people are like, oh, it's fake smoke, liquid smoke. It's not fake. It actually, liquid smoke, I like it. It's a pretty cool thing. All they do is they smoke water. That's what it is. It's real smoke that has been, they just smoke water just like we smoke the food, and then the water's reduced down to, you get a nice strong smoke taste out of it. But it was real wood that created all those flavors.
Interesting. Okay. Now I got homework when the butcher boss comes.
There you go.
All righty, sir. Have a good one. Thank
Talk
you.
to you later. Thanks for the call. Let's go to Idaho. Robert, welcome to the program.
Hey, Kevin, how are you doing today? Am I on right now?
You are. What's on your mind?
Hey, so I was on keto probably 2017 to 2020, unrelated to the virus of unspecified origin, but I just fell off the wagon.
Got it.
I'm getting started back on the road, and I'm getting, hold on a second, I'm in a little bit of traffic. I'm pulling over right now. I'm getting kind of back started trucking and on the road living and all that.
Okay.
And so I'm trying to get all my resources back that I had before. And I seem to remember that there was a place that I could find, like local farms, you know? I remember there's like a website with a national database of local farms that I can go to, because I'm just not finding the quality that I'm looking for, you know, just driving around. And sometimes, you know, you just want to visit a place like that. I remember finding it, and for the life of me, I cannot find it anymore. In fact, if you look into YouTube, it's all about farmers trying to get product to farmers markets. It's not about people trying to find farms, you know, because I just want to go get some eggs that are fresh, that I don't have to keep in the freezer, or the fridge. Are you aware of anything like that, or?
You know, there are a couple lists, and I'm just drawing a blank on this right now. I know there's one for raw milk. Weston A. Price maintains lists like this, I believe. If you go to look up Weston A. Price, and there should be a Weston A. Price Foundation, and they may have this. I know they do a lot of stuff with like lists of farms that do raw milk. So that might be a place to start. Are you a member on healthytribe.com?
I am. I have been listening. Well, I've been back home in Alaska. I really haven't been listening as much as I should, and I kind of fell off of everything.
So we have
I should be on there though.
We have a website. It is $3 a month we charge, and the only reason we charge and why it's so cheap, $3 a month, it just keeps out the trolls. We had a problem there with trolls for a while, and it was just it makes somebody put in a credit card so we know who they are, we know their name. So
yeah, I was a member of it. I think I was on the first month. I remember how it used to be on the Facebook group.
Yeah. So yeah, you know what happens with that. So that's a good place to post a question like that. We have a lot of people on there. The other difference there, if I see that question and it's on healthytribe.com, I have time to go look things up and then post it. When I get a question like this on the air, it's hard for me to just go look it up and then try to tell you what that website is. And so that's a really good resource for doing that.
Okay.
And if somebody sends me a message or maybe, somebody just sent me something, Matt did. So... Here, and this will be an easy website for you to remember. Eatwild.com.
Okay. Eatwild.com. Okay, I'll check it out.
All right. Go ahead.
And I only had one other question. You got me sold on the Ninja Foodie.
Yeah.
And I absolutely love it. I'm trying to get liver in my diet, and I just do not like how it cooks. Well, I only tried beef liver so far. Is there any way I can make, just living out of my truck, I don't have access to, do I have to get a food processor in order to get like a liver pate in my diet, or?
Well, liver pate is one way, and you would need a food processor. I can make liver pate with 2 knives, but it's a lot of work. So yeah, a food processor if you wanted to do pate. Try this on your foodie. Try to get a thicker cut of liver. Get a thick, nice thick slice of liver if you can get it cut that way, or buy a whole liver yourself and slice them yourself. I know they're kind of funky to work with, but slice it thick, and then try the air fry setting. And what you want to do is you want to cook it as hot and fast as you can. The other option you could use on the foodie, you can sear in the bottom of the container. So use the sear setting and let that.
It kind of gets soggy.
No,
when you set it on the bottom.
No, here's how you're going to do it. You're going to turn it on sear. You're going to let it come up to full temperature. Now, you never close the top when you do sear.
Okay.
So, or if you have to close the top, some of them have to close to activate, but you can't leave it in there. We want the surface that we're going to cook on to be screaming hot, so we sear the outside, but you want to leave liver rare.
Okay.
Rare, then you won't get that weird chalky feeling on your tongue, that weird texture when liver's overcooked. If you leave liver rare, it doesn't get that weird texture.
Okay, I'm gonna try that. That sounds pretty good. If not, I'll try the air fryer method. I think that's what I was doing wrong. Is I was cooking it too low, and so I'll just try it that way then.
Liver is never ever cooked low and slow. It is screaming hot and fast, and we want to kind of sear the outside to get a crust. I will also. I'll spray mine with a little bit of avocado oil. No, actually, let me give you a better method. The night before you're going to cook your liver, put it in buttermilk. Let it soak in buttermilk. When you take it out of and that will tenderize it even more, and it will, it kind of gets rid of that liver taste a little bit. The part of the liver that people go, oh, well, it's not quite that great. The buttermilk will cut some of that liver taste. When you pull it out of the buttermilk, just throw it in a bag with some arrowroot powder in there.
Okay.
It's a really, really fine coating. Arrowroot will give you a really, almost like a tempura kind of coating. And then you throw that onto a screaming hot cast iron, or in your case, the sear function in your foodie, and you get kind of a crust on the outside so you get some texture, and then you can still leave it rare on the inside. Today's turning into a cooking show. I'm kind of liking this.
All right. Well, you answered all my questions. I'll let you get to the other listeners.
All right. Thank you for the call. Let's head off to Texas this time. Justin, welcome to the program.
Hey, Kevin. I got a couple oil samples for you to look at.
All right. Let me go find them here. There they are. Oh, this is...
I took both of these oil samples at the same time and sent them to two different labs.
Oh, good. Interesting. Let me take a look at these then. I like when people do that. I used to do this a lot, and since I don't do oil samples anymore, I every once in a while I'll recommend somebody does this, and I haven't recommended that in a while. I should. So these are both taken at the same time, same mileage, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so...
I had the high fuel dilution prior for the OPS, and I took it to Freightliner, and they ran a Detroit sample and said, there's nothing wrong with it, it's fine. So I wanted to do both of them together by myself here.
Yeah, I love that. So I'm just looking through a couple things here. All right, let me go look at the other one. Whoa! Whoa! What the hell? You got to be kidding me. So I've talked about this before, but this is the first really good example of this. How long have you been listening to the show?
Years.
So you have had to have heard me say at some point, the one issue we absolutely know that some labs have trouble with is fuel dilution. Since we've gone to the ultra-low sulfur fuels and the biofuels, these other labs have not updated their equipment, and they can't detect fuel dilution. Oh, let me go check something else out, though. Wait a minute. So what kind of oil was this? 1540? No, it's a T6.
This sample was a mix. Well, this
Actually,
sample was a mixture. It had 3 gallons of T4 and 2 gallons of T6.
now here's something
That's just what I had on
interesting.
hand.
Here's something interesting. We go back. Now I'm going to use the OPS sample because that's the one that's more accurate. We've done this enough times to know. When I go back, way back to June of 2022, you had 7.4 fuel dilution, but your viscosity was 13.9.
Right.
That would have confused me. Had you called me with that, I would have been very confused. Then at one point,
I did.
you were
I did tell you, and that's what you said.
Oh, okay. Well, see, at least I'm consistent. I knew I would have been confused. Then at one point, your viscosity did drop all the way down to 10.5. Then we would have said, okay, this is finally making sense. The fuel dilution is real. We've now verified it with viscosity. But now we're back to you're still at 9 on fuel dilution, and I'm pretty sure I would have said this back then, too. I would have told you you are in danger of this crankcase exploding.
Right.
Yeah. Anytime we get over 7% fuel dilution, there are cases where the crankcase will explode. So we've got to get this figured out. But again, I'm confused because now your viscosity is back up to 12.2. Something else is occurring that's raising the viscosity because fuel dilution always lowers viscosity. It has to. It's just physics.
Right.
So if we have fuel dilution and high viscosity, we either have a false reading on the fuel, which is still a possibility because we have one lab saying there's no fuel dilution, we have one saying it is, and we have viscosity telling us a mixed message. This is very confusing. Have you talked to anybody at the lab at Polaris about this sample?
They called me and was going over the numbers, but I told him that I was waiting on my other sample from Detroit, and he said, okay, well, just wait and see what that says.
So had you been able to tell him the other lab sample, he might have said, well, they're missing the fuel dilution, but then when we would have said, well, why is the viscosity high here? Maybe they have some, I'm looking here, I can't see any reason. If soot was really high, that could raise viscosity. If we had coolant in the oil, that could raise viscosity. If silicon had gone too high, but none of those things have occurred. So you have a sample that is just an absolute mystery to me. And I would just have to work with the lab and try to dig in until somebody could explain to me what's going on, because I can't figure it out.
Okay. So I need to contact OPS or the
Polaris.
OPS lab or what?
Yeah, contact the lab and have both samples there, and maybe even send the other sample in so they can see it in front of them, and ask them if they can explain why we have crazy high fuel dilution and viscosity isn't showing it, and it did once, and then it's not showing. It's a mystery. I'm totally confused.
All right. Okay. All right. Well, I guess I got to get a hold of them then.
If you get a hold of them and, they're able to explain it to you and you're happy with the explanation, call me back and see if you can explain it to me. And if not, and you want to know, I would be willing to schedule a conference call with you and the lab.
Okay. All right.
Maybe we'll even
the Freightliner.
Maybe we'll even if it comes down to that, maybe we'll do it as a conference call on the air.
Okay.
So give them a call, see what they can explain, and if they have something you can call me and explain, and it makes sense, we'll all be happy. And if not, maybe we'll do a conference call with them.
Okay.
All right. Thanks for the call. All right. We'll look forward to that. It's a mystery. We got to solve it. Let's go to Nebraska. Carl, welcome to the program.
Hi, Kevin. Yeah, one of the things I remember back in the day was the whole non-stick being really toxic. I was
Oh,
wondering, is that still the case with the new stuff?
some of it, yes. There is some new stuff on. Now, let me also say this. When we first started using, oh shoot, what's the surface we use for nonstick? Teflon. We first started using Teflon. Nobody talked about any issues health-wise. We didn't know about PFOAs, or I had never seen anything about it. It was years that we were using those products before I ever heard that they were a problem, and they are a problem. So there are some new things on the market. I could claim that we don't know of any problems with them yet. I would have to always put in that qualifier. We may find out someday that no, they either didn't bother to check, or they lied, or they misled us, or whatever. Granite stone I've seen on the market. Now, the problem with some of these cookwares is they must be junk because they sell them so cheap. But granite stone is one. Copper, the copper clad seems to be okay. At some point, I might go dig and see if we are seeing elevated levels of copper from people who cook with this. That's something we might want to watch on that one. I've used some of the copper. It's actually not a bad surface to cook on. Most of the pans on the market are really cheap, which is kind of a problem for me. But those are two options that they claim that they don't have any health issues. My go-to for nonstick is cast iron. I cook in cast iron almost exclusively. The only thing I use a alternative nonstick for is eggs. And anymore, I almost always poach my eggs, so that's not an issue anymore either. But if I wanted to make like a fried egg, I have a copper pan that I use because even cast iron, I can't get my cast iron nonstick enough to make eggs work well.
Yeah, because currently I'm using that ceramic pans, which I mean they do still stick, but they're not as bad as just plain steel.
Ceramic is fine. Yeah, ceramic's fine. The other thing you can do to make these surfaces either cast iron or ceramic more non-stick is use more fat. You know, even an egg, if I have to cook an egg in a cast iron pan, I can do it, but it's going to have, the egg's almost going to be floating on the fat.
All right. Thank you, Kevin.
You're welcome. Thanks for the call. Let's go to South Carolina. Terrence, welcome to the program.
How's it going, Kev?
Good.
I got a quick thing on the CDs and the savings account. So when I got that money from my mom, I was like, well, I put like 100,000 in the savings just while I figure out what I'm going to do with the other part of it. And then I opened up a CD, a 9-month CD, and it was like 3.93 for 9 months.
Okay.
Which isn't bad, but it was, it was convenient because it's the same bank that
let me address that too. At some point, I said I'm going to start buying CDs. I just happened to, because I had this Apple credit card, they just happened to send me an email and say, hey, since you have this credit card, you can put money in at 4.5%. Well, that's a hell of a deal right now. Nobody's really close to that yet that I've seen. But at some point, if CDs keep going up, I will start buying CDs. I'll buy short term like you did, 6 or 9 months. Shorter the better right now. But I'm going to get stuck too. At some point, I'm going to buy a CD. My money's going to be in it. Rates are going to go up. And I'm going to go, oh, look, I got screwed. At some point, you just got to get in. And at some point, you get in and you're going to buy a CD. And at some point, you're going to look at it and go, well, I could be making more right now. That's just the nature of the beast.
Right. If we can figure that out, we'd all be rich.
Exactly.
But I like I said, the reason why I did that is because you said it, and then Matt had called in and mentioned about like staggering, like open up a $10,000 one,
right,
1 month and the next.
Right.
But the problem with that was the fluctuation of them. I'm like, well, what if all of a sudden it dropped? Like it was a gamble. So I said, listen, I know I'm not going to touch that. I don't need that 50,000 right now. I just plopped it in there.
Right.
So now when January comes, hopefully again they'll go up. You know what I mean? But I obviously don't know that. But I have that Apple Card too, and I remember getting that email a while ago.
Right.
About the thing, and I just didn't know how it worked. So you actually don't. What do you got to write them a check for whatever? I mean, because they're not a freestanding bank. Right?
No, you'll do some sort
or is
of.
it a Barclay Bank?
It'll be just some sort of a transfer.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't done it yet.
Yeah,
I got the email and I've talked about it, but I haven't physically gone to do it yet. But I'm sure it's just going to be some kind of bank transfer. I'm just going to say, hey, yeah, move $10,000 out of this account into your account, and I'll start collecting the interest.
Yeah, and the other thing I got too is I'm gonna do some renovation on a bathroom, and like I got money sitting in my checking account, and I'm like, well, do I put it back into the savings? But that's not an issue because it's all the same bank. But I'm getting leery about doing the renovations because people don't get back to you. I mean, I've gone through 3 different places to get a cabinet. I'm like,
don't get me started. I live in a place where I am so frustrated trying to get work like this done. Anything. Can't get appliances work done. Can't get electrical work done. Can't get plumbing work done. Can't get yard work done. I couldn't get a damn fence put in. I bet I had 3 people tell me they'd come out and give me estimates for fences. A couple didn't show up. One showed up, and I'm talking about, it was about 200 feet worth of low, only like 3 feet high, black wrought iron with two gates, 2 little man gates to walk through. $30,000 was their estimate. I laughed at them. I said, come on, just tell me you don't want to do the job. I mean, that's all this is. You just don't want to do it, which is fine. Just tell me that. Don't give me a damn $30,000 for a couple 100 feet of fence.
Yeah, we had this one place, we went, it was a younger kid, opened up, doing flooring. I got the whole story. I actually went and talked to the kid myself at the store. And I was like, all right, I'll give him a shot. I got a good feeling from him. But then when they gave us the estimate, it was like, depending on, always depending, and I get it. It's a ripping the bathroom out, but just nothing solid. So I mentioned to him, I said, you're really kind of vague with everything. Never got a response back from him. Nothing. Not a phone call. I was like, did I say the inappropriate thing? Or did he realize he was taking on a job? Or did he just not want to deal with me? I can't figure it out.
So this has to shift. This is another one of those things I've been talking about, like truck prices and trailer prices and rates, and all of this at some point will shift. It's not yet, and that's why I still keep using the word stagflation. I am still afraid that we could, and here's the thing, I don't know if anybody understands why we end up in stagflation. It doesn't make sense. The two things are almost opposite. You either have a stagnant economy, or you have an economy that's inflating so fast, the money gets all screwed up. I don't understand how you have both at the same time. But we did once in the 70s, and I was too young. I remember it, but I didn't understand it. I don't understand it now, but I'm going to try to, because this is what worries me, is our economy is slowing down rapidly. It's not inflating. It's slowing down. Everybody's announcing layoffs. Trucking, which is a leading economic indicator, is tanking by the day. It's happening so fast, and yet truck prices are not coming down nearly as much as I thought they should. They've come down, but housing prices in some parts of the country are still going up. It makes no sense. Interest rates are high, the economy's low, and housing prices are going up. That is nonsensical. And the only thing that explains that is stagflation. And if we have that again, hold on to your hats because it was an ugly time.
Yeah, see, that's the thing, too, because, like, we're in a development down here, and it's nice. But, I mean, the house is a little close. We got a nice pool in the backyard, you know, and I'm saying she wants a little something a little bigger. You know, I do, too. We really can't entertain a lot of people. Not that we do it all the time. It would be nice. But then I'm like, but we got this beautiful thing, you know, like the pool. I can walk out my gate in the back. It's actually on a swamp, so it is part of a swamp. I can go back catch bass back there. I won't eat them. But right. I could go out in the morning, throw a line in the pool and pull 3 fish in, and then I throw them back. You know, I got my fix for fishing.
Yeah.
But I'm now thinking down in South Carolina, they're building beautiful places, but there's 2 things. Again, like you said, we could get good money for the house, but then when I go to buy, I'm going to pay more money.
Right.
Second of all, is the workmanship. Well, I have a buddy of mine in their whole cause with. He bought a place up near Wilmington, and every time I go there, I notice something different. So finally, I stopped saying stuff to him because I'm pointing out stuff that I see, and he's like, "Oh, I know." He just, I mean, a beautiful house, but the workmanship is gone out of that too. So now, do I want to go buy something and have to deal with that again? It's just, I can't figure out. I think I'm just going to sink my money, you know, make this place as best as I can here, and deal with it. But it's just hard to get somebody to work there, to get work.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that's another thing, like I said, that should be shifting at some point. I'm still wondering why it's not.
Yeah, I don't know.
The only thing I can think is that even though people are getting laid off, we're just starting into that layoff trend. There's still work with Uber and Instacart, so that keeps some of them going. Some of them might be on some goofy unemployment program. There's enough of those out there. And enough people had such a good couple of years that even though the slowdown has started, there are enough people that still have enough money that they're keeping the prices high.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, but like I said, those that was with my interest rate with TD Bank, and I'm keeping my eyes open. I'm looking around because I could just move it to something else. I don't have to stay committed to them. You know what I mean? But
right.
I was like, I'm waiting. I remember that like back in 1988 when I bought my house when I lived in Jersey. I was paying 10.25% interest for the mortgage.
I know. I want to go back to that loyalty issue I talked about. You know, when I was talking with Herschel, you know, especially a small local bank, you know, I could see you give up a little bit that's part of building the relationship. So you might say, well, I could get 3.5% over here, but, you know, they're going to give me 2.5%. I'll go with that. It's part of the relationship. I'm at the point now with Chase, right. and even though it's a huge bank, we're a decent-sized business customer, so we have our own person, and they call us all the time, and I can't complain about their service. It's been fine. But their savings account right now is paying less than 1%. And I have a significant amount that I could be earning 4.5% on, and I'm at the point now where I will tell them, the next time my rep calls me and says, is there anything we can do? I'm going to say, you can either figure out how to pay me 3.5% or 4% on this money, or you're about to lose it. Because relationships go 2 ways.
Right.
I'm willing to give up something. Yeah. I am not giving up that much, though.
No, not if it's there. That's just like I said. I'm in a credit union too. When I bought my pickup truck, they gave you a free they put $25 in the savings account for you. So I was like, I never used it.
Right. So
after I got the money, for my mom, I said, I got to sit down. I figured out what I need. I'm going to start banking money. I've taken 20% out of my 401k, going every check. My company contributes, which is cool too. They can contribute 4%, but I worked at a place that used to do it monthly. They do it every week. So every week they're putting the money into my 401k.
Nice.
It's not like with a different place. It used to be monthly.
Right.
So it'd be cool. All right. But you wouldn't be getting that interest, into the account. it would be this was monthly, so it was. I mean, I still got money, but this is like crazy. So I'm stocking money into that, but I'm like, I'm leery about, like, do I want to start really going crazy looking for another bank, But this other one, like I said, this other savings account in the credit union is high too. But I don't, I got it. Then it's two different. I mean, it's just a lot of moving around.
Right.
I have the time to do it, but I don't. I just got to figure it out. But.
Yep.
Well, I will let someone else get in there. Thanks. Enjoy your time off there, man. You're looking at the Pacific Ocean, I guess, huh?
I am. Yep, it's right in front of me. Nice. I'm not going to say where I am on the coast, but I'm on the coast somewhere.
I wouldn't either. Enjoy yourself, man.
All right, we'll do.
All right.
Yeah, we're gonna be here with a little bit of ocean therapy till next Wednesday. So I'm looking forward to it. We will be doing a couple shows. I am off tomorrow and Monday, so I'm taking a long weekend. Right now, my long weekend is about to start. We are out of calls. I'll hang out here for just a minute or two. I'll give you a couple updates, and if you want to jump in, go ahead and do it. So here's the first update. Tomorrow is the last day of the Sovereign sale. We had a lot of sales yesterday on Sovereign. Thank you for the support. It was a great day in the store. Great products, the Sovereign Silver and Copper. That special ends tomorrow. That special, buy for every $50 worth of product you buy, you will get a travel size Sovereign Silver. So check that out. Couple other updates. Hold on. Okay, never mind. Here's another update. Sarah sent this over. There is an app for your phone. It's from the Weston A. Price Foundation, like I talked about. It's called Find Real Food Locations. So it's an app. That's pretty darn cool. It does look like there is a subscription on that one. It's $4.99 a month. It says 13,000 products in the USA approved by the Weston A. Price Foundation. Excellent. Keep in mind, we do follow a lot from Weston A. Price. They do still, though, talk about properly prepared grains. That's one place where I don't necessarily agree with Weston A. Price is on the grains issue, so just know that. You may find things like sourdough bread or something in there that is Weston A. Price approved. So just know that. All right, we've got a couple calls. We'll jump over and see what's on their mind. Paul, howdy.
Howdy. Yeah, I'm over here in Terrence's neighborhood.
Oh, there you go.
Senior over there in the Pacific Ocean, which is cooler than the Atlantic Ocean. Are you going to go and jump in the ocean, go for a swim?
Of course.
That salt water?
Of course.
Good deal.
Yeah. And we're getting pretty darn close to the start of wingfoil season, so I'm going to be getting plenty of cold exposure.
Oh, yeah.
The river, forget the ocean temperature. The river, remember, is all runoff from Mount Hood.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's cold.
If you stand up tall enough and look far enough, you'll be able to see New Zealand, because that's over there in the Pacific Ocean.
It is.
Maybe.
You got to remember, though, I am vertically challenged.
Yeah. So, you talking about wingfoiling? Have you seen any of the new yachts that are on foil?
Yes. Isn't that
Holy
crazy?
crap.
I know.
Yeah, they get up out of the water and it's like, oh, they're flying.
Yes. And that's exactly what it feels like on a wingfoil. It is crazy. It doesn't feel like you're connected to the water. It feels more like you're flying.
Yeah, well, the one that I watched a video the other day, and this yacht, it's got two foils on it, one on each side, but only one of them was in the water, and it's like this video looks like it's sped up, but it wasn't. And it's like, holy crap, I don't know what speed they were doing, but they were
It is.
fast.
It is a huge game changer. The whole foil thing on everything, boats, surfboards, ferries, everything's using foils now.
Should make the America's Cup yacht race fairly interesting.
Yeah. You're not kidding.
Whenever I don't know when they're having it. So, I did have one other thought on my mind, but I lost it. So I'll
You
go to someone else.
lost the thought, or you lost your mind?
I lost my thought.
Okay, that's better than losing your mind.
Yeah, well, some people tell you I've already lost that anyway. So, yeah. Okay, I'll carry on.
All right. I didn't lose my mind, but I do occasionally misplace it. Let's go to Utah. Ray, welcome to the program. Oh, let me try that button again. There we go.
Oh, good. Hey, I have a question. I have an 18-year-old daughter, and she has started investing in mutual funds. And so every 2 weeks, she spends $200 on mutual funds. So what I've had her buy, and you can correct me if it's wrong, is in the Vanguard, I've had her been buying the VOO, which is the S&P 500.
Yes,
is
that's
that a
correct.
good idea, or should I change it a little bit?
No.
So she puts $400 a month, twice a month she puts $200.
One of the things I have really moved towards in investing, like I do in almost everything, food, everything I can simplify, I try to simplify. And I am becoming more and more convinced that simplifying is important. So let's look at even my advice for years on 3 different index funds. The idea was we're even more diversified, but I'm looking at it now and saying, is that extra diversification really doing us any good? When we hit these big downturns, the S&P 500 is down, the small cap index fund is down, the EFA is down. They all seem to go down in the big downturns anyway. So what are we really protecting ourselves from? We're doing this long term. If we put all of our money into the S&P 500, we still have 500 different companies we're invested into. I'm really to the point where I'm just going to tell people, put it all in the S&P 500. Be done with it.
Well, that's kind of what I say. They say, well, what if I lose a lot of money? I say, well, if you're in the S&P 500 and you lose a lot of money and you go broke, everyone's screwed.
That's kind of my point.
You got 500 companies.
Right. The S&P is such a good, solid benchmark of our entire economy that what you just said is absolutely correct. If the S&P tanks, everything else is tanking with it. And we can look historically, it always has.
Yeah, well, I'm going to keep doing that. I just wanted to make sure because she's trusting me. She always teases me I'm spending her money, but I said, you'll thank me in 40 years.
Absolutely. So
you're doing that.
Congratulations to her and you as well. And I think your thinking is rock solid on this.
Well, then I'll keep doing that. So kind of got some of it from you and Dave Ramsey, and he says diversify, but I thought I'm not a financial expert, so I'll diversify what I do, and
yeah,
we'll keep her in that simple fund. So she just buys it every 2 weeks.
There you go.
So, well, thank you very much. Have a good vacation.
You're welcome. Thanks for the call. Let's go to North Dakota this time. Tom, welcome to the program.
Yeah, hey, Kevin. I hope you have a good way. I'll make this fast. I hope you're in, I always liked Rockaway Beach. That was always in that little, they have the smallest port in the United States is right a little south of that. I forget the name of it.
You know what else is cool about Rockaway Beach?
Well, don't say the meth monkeys, but
Have you ever seen all the bunnies?
the bunnies?
Yeah. There's wild
No.
rabbits all over that town. They're everywhere.
Oh, is there? I never paid attention. I
Yeah,
guess.
a lot of black
No.
ones. We were in an RV park over there, and you could almost feed them. They were so tame, and they're just all
Really?
over the place. Yeah.
They're not real wild bunnies though. Then they're just people's pets that got loose, huh?
No, I asked somebody, and they said something about there's like a whole colony of them up in the hills. I guess they are really wild, and some of them have just migrated down there.
Oh, that's
But
crazy.
they're just they're
Well, that'd be
almost
fun.
tame. Yeah, it's kind of cool. Makes Diesel crazy.
Well, oh boy, huh? I bet,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. Jeez Louise, that'd be something else. Hey, so you were talking about cast iron skillets, and that's all I cook when I'm at home. And I just went with Lodge because they made in the United States, and they're not bad pans, but they're not finished well. But if you take that Lodge pan and you sand it down, granted you'll have to re-season it, but if you sand that down and use 120 grit at the end, and then re-season it, that really makes it really non-stick. And I was thinking, with the copper that we know now, and so I'm going to try this. It might be 6 months till I can get home, but all the pennies that are before 1982 are like 90-something% copper, right? So I wonder if you just melted pennies and poured them in your cast iron, if it sticks to cast iron, if it doesn't have any seasoning on it. But wouldn't that be cool to have a cast iron skillet with just like you don't have to get it all the way up the sides, even just the majority of the bottom.
That's
copper.
an interesting thought. Yeah, I don't know if that would work at all, but
Yeah.
it's an interesting
Yeah.
thought. Yeah.
I'll try it and let you know how it works out. And you have thanks for everything you do for everybody, and have a wonderful 4-day weekend.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Let's go to Connecticut. Ron, welcome to the program.
Hi, good morning, Jeff. How you doing today?
Good. What's on your mind?
So first off, I want to say you always claim you're not funny, but dropping yourself on your own radio show, that's funny as all get out right there.
That was, and there was a moment of panic because you know how it takes a second after you click on something most of the time. So as I'm reaching to click to hang up that line, just as I'm doing it, I saw the screen shift, but I couldn't stop my finger. It was already in motion, but I knew what I was doing before I even did it. I just couldn't stop myself.
That was fantastic. So the reason why I'm calling, so I assume you read the book Drop Acid.
Yes.
Right? Okay, so I have a bunch of questions about that. Now, I've listened to your show for years, and you've always said that, eating meat and all that stuff, doesn't cause, issues in our joints and whatnot. But according to his book, he pretty much, if you have any problems with gout, you kind of need to eliminate self-occurrence in it, including meat and all that.
Yeah, so the difference there.
Take is on all of it.
Yeah, let me explain that. You know that I talk about the fact that I eat fruit and honey every day, right?
Right, yep.
Do you ever hear me recommend fruit and honey to somebody who's diabetic?
No.
No, we have to solve the problems first. We have to fix what's broken.
Okay.
So I do believe that the proper human diet is primarily animal products, and a little bit of fruit and honey managed well can add to that. Too much fruit and honey would start to take away from it at some point. A little bit of fruit and honey managed well for somebody who is metabolically healthy works. No different here. If you want to get through that transition with the fewest gout symptoms, then yes, you would temporarily cut down on some of those protein animal products and get more of your calories from fat for a while.
Yeah, because I was just wondering, because I'm pretty much carnivore at this point, and I really don't have any issues. Now, before I went, I was doing keto for years and all that, and I was having gout-like symptoms in my toe, and I was thinking it was gout, and listening to you all this time and reading a bunch of books and all this stuff, I started to wonder if it was really meats and all that, or if it wasn't I wasn't processing fat correctly.
Well, yeah. So
because it seemed to occur when I had a lot of fat.
Let's explain what could. There's two things happening here, and I suffer from this exact same thing, and I absolutely know it's not gout. I've checked. It's not gout. It is so. Gout is uric acid crystallizing in the joint and then causing the inflammation and the pain. Oxalates can crystallize in the joint and cause the pain. When our fat digestion is poor, we have more problems with oxalates. You are also, if you've listened to the mini-series on oxalates, you're also experience oxalate dumping. So we have to find the sweet spot of oxalates in your diet. If you are true carnivore, you have no oxalates, and your body will dump even more. So this is a case where we actually add some oxalates in to stop our body from dumping so hard.
Yeah, I like to feel I'm true carnivore, but I know every once in a while I still like my broccoli and my asparagus.
It may not be enough oxalate. You may have to add some more. So dark chocolate is one of my go-tos. I like dark chocolate because it has other benefits. It's an adaptogen. It's a good source of a lot of minerals, a lot of trace minerals. So I when I have room for more oxalates, it's almost always dark chocolate or sweet potatoes. That's another huge offender, but I love sweet potatoes. So you may want to try adding some more oxalate back into your diet.
Okay. Yeah, because I broke my knee last year, and I recovered from it, and it seems that when I get that little flare up on my toe, my knee also starts to hurt at the same time. And I don't know if that's, I know we don't all believe in coincidences, but I wonder if they're kind of related to each other. Obviously I'm doing something that's flaring up the joint, but when I read that book or listened to it,
it could very well be. Here's kind of how both uric acid crystals and oxalate crystals will act. You will primarily get them first in your feet, and that's because it settles to the lowest point because of gravity. That's all that's happening there. So ankles, knees could be more likely, but then here's the next place they tend to cause problems. Any joint that's been injured. I get them in my left shoulder.
Yeah.
I've separated my left shoulder twice. I will get that oxalate pain in my feet if I'm going to get it, and then the next place it'll show up will be my left shoulder. And then my left knee, because I almost tore my left knee off once. So, yeah, that's pretty common.
Well, pretty much every joint in my body's been injured. I raced motorcycles and cars when I was younger, so
yeah, me too.
Just about every joint in my body's got some kind of trauma.
Yeah.
So I did buy a uric acid meter a while ago, and I've had it maybe 6-7 months, and I don't think the reading ever went above 2.1 or 2.2.
You definitely do not have gout then.
Right. Yeah, it's always been really low. I mean, there's times it's under 1.
Yep.
I don't know if that's good.
Try to get about 250 milligrams of oxalate a day.
Okay.
That's a target to shoot for.
I'll try that and see if the pain goes away. Fantastic. Thank you so much, brother. You have a great weekend.
You're welcome. Thanks for the call. Let's go to Florida. Matt, welcome.
Good morning, Kevin.
What's on your mind today?
So, a lot of investing stuff today. So
yeah,
I've tried to hold off calling, but it just kept getting more, so I had to call in.
There you go.
I'll start with Herschel had the correct numbers. He was talking about his IRA.
Yes.
And for this year, 2023, it is $5,500 for anybody under the age of 50. And Herschel said 7,000, and he is over the age of 50. Yeah, if you're over 50, you can get that 7,000 in.
Got it.
There are a couple callers there talking ago about his daughter in the S&P 500 index and Dave Ramsey's recommendations. Been listening a lot more to Dave Ramsey lately. I just got hooked on his podcast again because there's several years there I probably didn't listen at all. He actually had this several months ago, and he went back and did the research because he was looking at mostly the EFA, the European or international funds, whatever. And
right.
They've been down for years. So if you do short term, you'd be better off without them. But anytime, any 10-year cycle, if you expand it out to at least 10 years, you actually ended up better with it in. Now we're talking pretty
right. It was small.
Differences.
Yeah, it is small, and that's
make or break yet.
And that's kind of why I always pushed the 3 because I mean there was a reason, and I didn't develop this idea, but there was a reason this idea came to be. And you did use 3 because, like you said, if you went back historically and checked, the 3 performed better than 2, and 3 performed better than 1. And so that's why I always kept it in there. But it's a fairly small difference. And our life has been getting so complicated that I am just starting to try to simplify things more and more.
And that's what I'm doing too. And majority of everything I do is just the S&P 500. I have actually shrunk even my 401k. At one point, I think I had 12 different mutual funds.
Yeah.
I think I'm down to 7 right now, and there's a couple more I'm probably going to get rid of just because their fees are so high.
Yeah.
Life
is
simpler and simpler.
so damn complicated anymore that I'll give up a little bit of an advantage to simplify things. I'm even doing it with food. That whole idea, I've talked about it, where Steve Jobs wore the same clothes every day and ate the same breakfast every day. He did it to simplify his life so he could save his willpower and decision-making power for important decisions. Not stuff that, it doesn't matter what you wear, what you ate for breakfast. Well, what you eat does, but that's a different argument right now. But, I've always said I was a foodie, both Lisa and I. We love food. We'd make, wild dishes. I wanted to learn how to cook other cuisines. I am the exact opposite now. I am so simplifying food. I'm standardizing some recipes and saying, look, I'm just going to make this as easy as I can so I don't have to go through this thought process of what am I eating today.
And yeah, that's a lot of, it was in one other book, either about goals and that, but your top 3 most important things to do for the day.
Right.
You always do those first. And then the less important things, if you don't get to them, you don't get to them.
Exactly.
But your important stuff got taken care of.
Yep.
So, I missed the open of the show, but I come in when you were talking to the guy about 2 trucks and the trip leasing type stuff. The FMCSA, well, they might have a list somewhere. I didn't find one. They really only have a recommendation. It's a gray area. So technically it's worded as unprocessed raw materials.
Okay.
Is what is exempt commodity.
Right.
So this is where it becomes a gray area. So if you're loading wood chips out of the woods, that's an exempt commodity.
Okay.
If those wood chips have been colored and now it's a landscaping product, even if it's still, the bulk walking floor guy delivering it to a landscaping place, that's a processed material.
I had a feeling it probably gets this screwy and complicated.
And like I say, that's not in writing, so it's up to the discretion of an officer on the side of the road.
Right.
Is it really exempt?
And how many officers really know what the hell they're talking about?
Well, yeah, most don't care. Yeah, I mean, they kind of wood products, stuff like that. That's all exempt. So
I would,
but yeah,
you know, what about
goofy.
what about agricultural products? I mean, what constitutes processing?
You know? Well, yeah, I would assume, you know, now everything today is, you know, your bag salads, all that. That's a processed material.
That's what I mean. So that gets pretty screwy,
all
right?
Had the lettuce, yeah.
Typically, produce is considered exempt, right?
Yep, yeah, produce is.
But like you said, bagged salads, is that exempt?
That's a gray area.
What about baby carrots?
So,
baby carrots.
Technically,
baby carrots do not
processed.
grow like that. In case anybody's wondering, baby carrots are nothing but big carrots shaved down to that size.
Yep. So, and then the leasing on, and I would have. He gave the example of Landstar there, and I would assume you were thinking correctly that yes, Landstar has that policy that if your truck is leased onto them, you cannot use that truck to go do anything else.
Right.
But that's that truck, not a different truck.
Yeah, I have never heard that
you'd have to
before.
check to
Right.
make sure.
Right.
Because yeah, this is truck individual. They're, you know, what you're leased onto them, the truck you have leased onto them, they have the VIN number.
Correct.
A different truck with a different VIN number means nothing to Landstar.
Well, and first off, how do you know? I'm not going to tell you. It's none of your business. I'll put a damn truck wherever the hell I want. And how are you going to know that I have a truck somewhere else?
Well, yeah, and that's where the trip leasing.
Or
is
here's
really
another way.
confusing.
Here's another way, and then we'll jump over to the trip leasing. In many cases, I do know of carriers that will lease on trucks that are owned by somebody who's not the driver. So that truck will become my wife's then.
Yep.
Or my son's, or, you know, somehow I'd figure this out.
You know, or just even a second LLC.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So
It's
even...
so easy to
right.
circumvent that.
So now, yes, go check. I don't believe that. I believe there was a misunderstanding here. But if it is true that you can't, so what? I could figure out so many ways around it.
So yeah, the whole. I mean, I completely agree with you that the authority just needs to go away because it's really just a secondary enforcement tool on top of, you know, it's these multiple laws covering the same thing.
It makes no sense. Right. And
the safety department is enforceable.
I'm shocked when I talk to people in the trucking industry and they're like, well, no, it has to exist. Well, that's how the FMCSA does their safety audit or all this other screwy answers. And I'm like, so what? Why can't they just do a safety audit? Why do I have to have this process of authority in order for them to do a safety audit? Every industry I know is subjected to some sort of safety audit.
Well, yeah, there's OSHA laws that cross with FMCSA laws,
and
you know,
if we get into food service, then there's all kinds of inspections and regulations around food service, but restaurants don't have to go ask for authority and pay for it.
Yeah. Speaking of that, my sister went to college for food science, I believe was her major, but she works at a food processing plant and she's supervisor. And there's one time on Facebook I posted a picture of my load, and she comments, "That's not legal. There was no cardboard across the top of the pallet, shrink wrap."
Right.
And I guess that is some food safety rule somewhere.
I'm
but
sure
I can
of
tell
it.
you, majority of the freight I haul, it's not there.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, no doubt.
But
Speaking
so
of,
Tripoli
that I'm going to comment on that. The number of rules and regulations that never get followed in all kinds of industries, and on social media, the argument right now is the broker transparency issue. And there's one guy that I've actually butted heads with a couple times in the past, and then we kind of agreed to disagree on some things, and we actually have a conversation once in a while. He's very, very different from my thoughts. He's big on unions, and even though he's an owner-operator, he's big on unions and big on OOIDA and those kinds of things. And his big issue now is this broker transparency. But he's almost kind of gone off the deep end on it. He just keeps talking about it's rampant fraud. It's happening every day on every load. It's the biggest fraud in U.S. business history, and it's hurting us all. And I'm like, dude, chill. I agree with you that it happens, but the fact that it's the biggest fraud in U.S. history and it's hurting us all, give me a break. This doesn't hurt anybody. Who cares?
Well, and my response always, these people that think the brokers are screwing them and the brokers are taking all the money, is first, go interview a couple of brokers and find out how much money they really make.
Exactly.
It ain't that much.
No.
And number two, if you want to understand the broker business, go work for one for 6 months.
Exactly.
And actually learn everything and
there you go.
Find out what it involves.
There you go. Here's the other thing I posed to him, and this shut him down completely. I've gotten zero response from this. So I said, all right, let's try this. Because he keeps posting these loads. Look, here's another one. Look, here's another one. Well, you could do that all day long. We get it. The rates are low. Come on. So he posted one of these loads, and my response was, okay, let's try it this way. Right now, you have that load posted, and that's all the information you have. You have no idea how much the broker's getting paid for this load, and you have to make a decision. This is what you do every day. Are you going to pull this load or not based on the information you have? And what you have is how much it pays you. Isn't that all you need? So you have the information. You decide, do you want to pull this load at this rate or not? That's step number one. Now, give me your answer to that question. Now I'm going to say, okay, here is the information on that load and how much the broker made. Are you going to make a different decision now? And if you are, explain that to me.
Yeah, I think most people would probably be pretty shocked to find how often brokers move loads for free and sometimes actually lose money on them.
Yep.
I know my main broker on my southbound haul, when things were terrible because they were under contract, they were several times, it's many loads a week that move, and I bet you they were doing 2-3 loads a week. They were losing money on just to get them covered.
Yeah, it absolutely happens, and So let's say that in this case, let's say we show him the load and he makes a decision. He makes a decision that he's going to pull it. I see the rate. Okay, I'll take this one. Now we tell him that the broker's actually taking 25% out of this load. What good is that information?
Yep. Then he goes nuts.
So are you going to take it now or not? And if you say no, then I'm going to ask the broker for more. Okay, that's fine. That's called negotiation. You should probably learn how to do it. There's actually some skill to this. But that's fine. Go back and ask for more. Ultimately, if he just says, I don't care if I'm taking 25%, I'm not paying you more. Well, then what are you going to do? Are you going to say no? And now you're going to leave a load on the dock that you would have pulled before. So why do you even want to know this?
It's the difference between truly being a business owner and running a business.
It really is.
Versus saying I own a truck and working on emotions versus working on true business principles.
Yep. That's really what it
Don't get
comes
me wrong,
down to.
It crosses even myself.
Of course.
I have days where my emotions affect my business decisions, and usually not in a good way.
Well, we deal with this constantly, like many businesses do. Every time we bring a new product into the market, into the store, we have to negotiate that deal. How much are we going to pay for that product, and then how much can we sell it for in our store? And I don't know what the manufacturer's margins are. Do I try to, and I say I don't do any of this. Lisa does all this, and she's really good at it, but she doesn't, when she's negotiating with one of these manufacturers, she doesn't know if maybe they could pay us twice as much for all we know. And if we knew they could, we'd probably negotiate harder. But that's not how business works. I don't get to know their margins before I negotiate.
And that's wide open too, because watching Shark Tank, you've seen some of them where say their manufacturing cost is 50% of what they're selling it for.
And for some people it's 2%.
Huge margin.
Right.
Yep. And then the next one will come in, and it's so low. It's like, well, how do you even make money?
Exactly. And then you have to make money on volume. So that this all of these things, this is how business works, and it's why business isn't easy. You have to get good at all these things. They take work. This idea that you have to tell me your margin so I know how to negotiate is just lazy. No, that's not how this works.
And this ties right into what I was going to say about this trip leasing, and you even brought up OOIDA.
Yeah.
I'm not blaming them, but just to rub salt in some people's wounds about all this. I'm assuming a lot of this is OOIDA's fault, because back in the 90s, when they were suing all these carriers, and all that it resulted in that was the contracts got much thicker.
Oh yeah, it got huge.
As the lawyers dug into it and made the contracts, more ironclad, that's where you can no longer take a truck and drive it.
That may be no, you may be onto something here. And I've told this story before, and the first time I heard it, it was so shocking. I was at a trucking conference, and there was an attorney group there. Same attorney group I always talk about, Scopolitis, Garvin, Hansen, Feary, whatever. I actually know Greg Feary, one of the partners. They are like the number one trucking attorney group in the country, and they're really good too. They were doing a presentation on contracting with owner-operators. Now, this is being given to fleets. This was a fleet conference. And their presentation was on the contract itself. And when you're reading about the different sessions, they said, we will tell you from up front whether or not your contract is good or not. Now, we can't say for sure, but we can give you one big way we'll know whether your contract is good or not. That's pretty interesting. I want to hear this. So we get in there, and the attorney walks up on stage, and he's making a big deal about setting up all his stuff, and he takes out a big postal scale and he puts it on top of the table, and then he starts talking about contracts, and he takes a contract and he sets it on the scale, and he looks and he says nope, and he throws that one away, and he puts another one on the scale, and he's talking about other things that he's doing it, and he's nope, and he throws that one away, and then he takes this big thick heavy contract and he puts it on, and he's going, yep, perfect. That was their only criteria. From that alone, they could tell you. Now, if it was big, then they would dig through it and make sure you had all the right stuff covered. But the first step was it has to weigh a certain amount. If it doesn't weigh that much, that means it doesn't have enough pages, and it's probably risky. Doesn't that suck that that's how we have to do business?
Yep. Well, and then the other next side of it is insurance, like you're saying, and with insurance companies getting drug into bigger and bigger lawsuits every day,
Right.
If, as a carrier, you are responsible for liability.
Correct.
So if you, let's just use big names so everybody knows, for an example here. If you were leased on to Schneider and then you wanted to go pull a load for Swift under a trip lease, Schneider still has liability insurance on that truck. Even if you put Swift's name on the door, covered up Schneider.
Correct.
If you were in an accident, a lawyer is going to dig that up, and they're going to dig Schneider into the lawsuit.
That's another good point. You're right. Yep.
So that's why, legally, trip leasing has become very, very hard because of insurance and just, thicker contracts. And, we got to protect everything.
And
so don't take the risk.
It sucks that we can't do it. Trip leasing was a good thing. I really liked it.
Yeah, well, but back then your contract with the carrier was one page.
I actually experienced trip leasing from both sides of the table because I trip leased as an owner-operator, and before I became a broker, I was an agent for CRST. So I had CRST door signs at my location, my physical location, and if I found a truck to move a load and it was a trip lease, they would come by my physical location and I would give them door signs.
Yeah, and luckily in the early 90s, or late 90s,
trucks were steel. Right. Yeah.
And magnetic signs work.
Right.
I had one.
Exactly. That's not the case anymore. Yeah. Maybe that's there. Now we just figured it out. This is simple. We don't trip lease anymore because our signs won't stick. Right. It's those damn plastic trucks.
Yep.
That's all it is.
Yep.
All right.
So,
I am gonna.
Food for thought.
Yeah, I'm gonna move along because the calls are piling up on me. Actually, what I'm gonna do here, we're down to 30 minutes. I'm gonna turn the phones off for any new calls. So don't bother dialing. I just turned the phones off. I got a bunch of calls here. Let's go to New Jersey. Danny, welcome to the program.
I think it's still morning. Good morning, Kevin.
Good morning. It's still morning here on the Pacific Ocean. Yes.
It's 1:30 over here, but Matt is my inspiration. I wasn't going to go here, but I've been doing this since 1974, 1975, and I was out here in the Carter days. As a matter of fact, at the end of the Carter days, my father and I had bought our first truck, and anyway, I got my landing gears up. So, in other words, what I'm saying, I'm not landing. I'm going to stay up and just keep going quick so you can get into your vacation. I used to pull, once I was able to get my own trailer, I mainly stayed in Florida, and all of produce at that time was exempt. And so that is an avenue. I'm pretty sure that's still an avenue for the individual that was asking about that. And what I would do, I would follow the broker. We would start in Homestead with tomatoes, and then we would work all the way up the coast of Florida, and then he would go to Santee, South Carolina. And a lot of guys would go out to the coast, but I always had heard that the farther you go, the less you make. I mean, that was a very simplistic statement.
Right.
But,
right.
I mean, I never had a desire to go to California because in those days, a Jake brake was an option. And I couldn't afford a Jake brake.
Yeah, right.
But I knew my limitations, which is not really, that doesn't apply in all of my life. But just to dovetail off of what Matt was saying, I seem to remember, but when everybody else went to California, I'd go to Plover, Wisconsin and pull potatoes for Jeff Mock, who would come up out of Alabama. I would make the relationships with the broker. And you opened up Monday's show about these individuals that want to know what the broker's making.
Right.
My question is, do you know what you're making right now?
No, they don't. That's what makes me crazy about this. They're demanding that they know what somebody else is making when they don't bother to know what they make themselves.
It's impossible to survive, because what that is, Kev, in my mind, it's a professional victim's mentality.
Yes.
Everybody, and I lived that for a while. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I like I said last week, there's not much that you're gonna hear come out of my mouth that doesn't have a real life personal experience where I had to take a step back and say, wait a minute, that didn't work out too good. Let me rethink that. And, you know, going back to that time, I had always, my father was a disciplinarian. I think we got that pretty much, you know, covered last week. But him and I bought a truck together. He had the credit, I had the money, and I had the place to put it. But he was very strict on doing the logs. And I mean, you know, we ran team, and if my log didn't beat his, you know, because we used to run drop and hook out to Chicago. But anyway, to make a long story short, he really trained me to be compliant aware.
Right.
So what I did with that, because, and I'm going to be brief, I tried to manipulate. And I did for many years. I would trip lease, get the signs from somebody, get the bingo card, and you had to put a deposit on the bingo card and the sign, you know, when you settle. I would keep the sign and the bingo card for a year until the bingo card expired. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I would maneuver like that. That was my mentality back then. But getting into the insurance that Matt was talking about, I totally agree with that, because I seem to remember when is all you needed to carry for an independent was $780,000. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Per truck. So what they, you know, I mean, if you were going to buy a policy, which you had no problem buying a policy, you got $1 million policy and you kept moving. But I think it was right about in the beginning of Obama's term. Matt Cartwright out of Harrisburg, he's a congressman, and I believe he's still down there. His family, they have a family law firm. He pushed for the insurance threshold to go up to 4.8 million. So what that told me, I'm very simple, is all that, because what the statistics were going back, I think it was 30 some odd years from that period of time, there was less than 1% of truck accidents that the claims were over the $780,000, you know, $1 million. So it said to me, you know, what's the angle on that? And the angle tells me that what they were doing, and that goes dovetail with Obamacare, they were in the business of picking winners and losers, just like Dodd-Frank did in the housing crisis back in 2008. But I'm going to move on from there, because I'm being very serious. I value this platform. I mean, there's not even a word to describe it. But, you know, you were talking about Alex Jones. I remember years ago that Alex Jones, I seem to remember, I can't be held to this, he had a TV show. And I think it had something to do with conspiracies and all that kind of stuff. It was on Saturdays. And I seem to remember him saying that there was somebody in his family that was in one of the governmental agencies. So he had a insight to things that the average individual didn't. But what my theory is right now, because of what you said this morning with Tucker and him, and the last interview that I seen with Tucker was Elon Musk. It's just a theory, but I would watch that as Elon got the money.
There's a lot of speculation going on with, and like I said, we may never know. The whole media is its own animal. I mean, nobody gets fired the way you do when you're in the media.
No, because where's Lou Dobbs? Lou Dobbs was the first to go.
Yeah,
I think he was in between O'Reilly.
Yeah,
Dobbs was good.
They're almost always conservatives.
You got him yeah, but what I like, it's exactly what you were saying this morning about truth. Truth is the truth is the truth. That's it. But and this is what I was saying yesterday, I have an instinct to when somebody's trying to talk down to me. And what I understand about the settlement that Fox paid Dominion, that never went to court. That was a settlement outside of
Correct.
court.
Right.
Why didn't it go to court?
Well,
why didn't they fight it?
Why didn't who fight it?
Fox.
My guess is the reason anybody doesn't go to court is because they're afraid they'll lose. That they believe that there's enough evidence that they could lose, and then it could be much, much worse what they might face. So they settle so that they know what the damage is. Fox looks at it and says, "Look, it sucks, but we can afford $780 million. We can't afford $1 billion if that were to happen. So we're not going to take the chance of a jury. We'll just settle." Attorneys know that juries are very, very unpredictable. So you have to be very careful getting in front of a jury. So instead, they'll just settle. Then it's a known amount. We can budget for it. We can afford it. We know what it is. We're not taking the chance.
Can they crunch those numbers, though, for what they lost with Tucker?
Well, you have to speculate. Look, here's something a lot of people don't realize. Tucker was number one in ratings, number one in numbers. Right. He was not number one in revenue. He had a huge revenue problem because the left has a big campaign going to boycott Tucker's sponsors. That's been going on for a long time, and it worked. Right. Hell, if you watch Tucker, what you see are 9 MyPillow commercials.
God bless Mike Lindell.
Yeah, so Tucker does not make as much money as everybody might believe he does because of that boycott.
But I go with that. But I just want to make one other point.
Now let's be clear so people understand. Last quarter, I think he brought in $38 million in ad revenue in a quarter, 3 months. I'm not saying he doesn't make ad revenue. He makes a lot, but he doesn't make as much as he should based on his listener base because of the boycotts.
You have a comparable, though, to somebody else?
There are several other hosts on that channel that generate more ad revenue, yeah. But that never used to be.
Hannity does?
Yeah, Hannity does.
Would that be Yeah, okay. All right, that makes sense. But I just want to go here because last Saturday, I need downtime. I need to get back in the truck because I got too much downtime. But last Saturday, I put on the television, and I'm going to try and say the Smithsonian channel was on.
Yeah,
and they were doing Aerial America, and they showed California from San Diego all the way up I-5, I believe that is. I forget the Pacific Highway. And they showed the William Randolph Hearst.
No, they weren't on I-5 then. They were on 101.
That's it. Okay. But when they showed that, they said that Randolph Hearst was in the business of being kingmakers within the political arena. And they're no longer now Murdoch. Do you know how he originally made his money? Hearst or
Hearst.
No, I don't.
He struck gold.
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah, he struck gold. It's an interesting story too. He almost didn't. It was one of those. He had worked at it, had spent months or even years out in the field trying to find gold, and then finally had a big strike. Yeah.
In California?
Yep.
See, and that's where over here on the East Coast you'd hear go west, man. Go west.
That's right. All right, we're going to move along. I got to watch I don't run out of time here. We're going to head to Pennsylvania. Wade, welcome to the program.
Hey, Kevin, good to talk to you.
What can I help you with today?
I had one question I called about real quick. I wanted to just let Tom know that I already called into the FBI and the Ministry of Monetary Funds to report his copper melting story.
That's right, destruction of government currency.
Yeah, really quick. This guy called about this 2 times already. The guy that has the dually pickup, he said he didn't want to pull up to the truck fuel island because he doesn't like putting catalyst in. So I've heard a couple people mention this and about the catalyst in general, how to dispense it into smaller vehicles. So Bruce has mentioned it, but he hasn't mentioned it in a while. If you go to your local pharmacy, you can get a children's little, it's like a 5 cc or a 10 cc medicine syringe.
Right.
They work really well.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
After 3 months, the measurements wear off of them. So but there's like $3 or something. So what I do, I was putting it in my car, and I kind of had the same thought as Bruce. If you're in a hurry, is it worth it to do this? If I'm in a hurry, I want to get home. Is it worth it to dispense it? So what I do, I usually start the pump. If I know I'm getting 10 gallons, I start the pump. By the time you get it in the syringe, you're only at 5 or 6 gallons. Just kick the pump off real quick, squirt it in, start the pump. It takes like 5 seconds extra. So that's an idea for that guy if he's worried. If he's self-conscious about the time he's taking at the pump, which I wouldn't be because, you got so many dumbasses out here that are, I watched a guy text on his phone for about 5 minutes and then swipe his card afterwards and stand outside the truck. I could have put that
I agree with you on this.
There's no courtesy.
If somebody is in that lane getting fuel and checking their oil and checking tires, I'm fine with that. That's all part of the whole truck thing, and you're right there and you're doing it. That would never bother me. Somebody standing around texting on their phone, and that starts to bother me then. So, yeah, you don't have to be that self-conscious about getting in and getting out quickly, but like you said, it's not even 30 seconds.
Yeah. With that kind of stuff, most of the level-headed truck drivers out here are not going to have a problem with it, and for the rest of them that do, I just tell them to kiss your rear end.
Exactly.
It's just what you got to do. I'd pull up if I had a diesel car like Bruce does. I'd pull up and get fuel. I wouldn't even think twice about it. You're paying them money for the fuel. You're a customer like anybody else. But the reason I called today, so we are in June. We're going to be going on an out west road trip. We live in Pennsylvania, but we're going to be doing everything west of the Mississippi road trip. And my son, he's 6, and he's at least every other time we take a trip that's more than say 30 minutes to an hour, he gets car sick. Fairly clean diet. When he's at home, it's very clean. They do eat a little bit more fruit than I would like, but it's mostly, almost 100% real food. And then the only exception is when they end up at my in-laws' house or at my parents'. It's kind of like, do I want to fight with my parents or my in-laws about
you don't
bread every now and then?
No, you don't. That's a battle that's not worth fighting. And I don't get too crazy about it. Right.
I love my kids, but I gotta weigh the whole scenario here. So
exactly.
Dramamine is definitely not going to be a thing unless you have something different to say. We're not going to do that for this road.
I
Absolutely
wouldn't.
not. But it's anything we can do.
There are a couple things you can try, and you may want to practice before you leave. Go do an hour and a half or whatever, and make sure, try some different things that might work. Just in general, probably the most powerful, natural substance we have for nausea would be ginger. So real raw ginger. I actually ferment mine. I have to fight issues with nausea from a motorcycle accident that I had, and I scarred my intestines and makes me very susceptible to nausea. And that's not the worst of it. The nausea could actually become a bowel blockage that's life-threatening. So I really have to watch it, and if I get nauseous, I've got to try to beat it pretty quickly. For me, that's part of the cannabis thing, but we're obviously not going to do that here.
Yeah, my wife ruled that out.
Yeah, I kind of figured that one. So I will take raw ginger and I'll throw it in a blender or a food processor and blend it down, and then start to add the brine, a fermenting brine, which is just water and salt. And then you make a paste, and then I'll let that I'll let it sit out for months and months and months. It ferments, and then eventually I'll just throw it in the refrigerator. And if I feel nausea coming on, if I catch it early enough, ginger alone is strong enough. So I'll put a little bit of this, like a teaspoon or a half a teaspoon for a child probably, of the ginger paste in a glass. Put in a little bit of water. Actually, a little salt helps too. And then, but try to keep the liquid as a small amount, so you can do it like a shot, because it's pretty potent. I mean, raw ginger's got a pretty potent taste. It's spicy, actually. So that is really powerful for nausea, so you may want to try that. I have seen some products on the market, ginger drops, and they are pure ginger, and they have some sugar, which I wouldn't worry about here. That may be easier for a child than trying to do the raw ginger shot. Depends on the child. There are also some devices. You may want to go to Amazon and just type in motion sickness devices, and they use acupressure. There's some that will go on your wrist like a watch. There's a couple
things like that.
They work. Now, I can't promise you every product on the market that claims to.
I've always looked at those.
No, I can tell you the concept works. But I can't promise every product on the market works. So you're just going to have to read reviews and that kind of thing. But the concept of these motion sickness devices work, and what they're using is basically acupressure to block that signal. There's another device on the market right now for people who have. I just drew a blank. When you've got a screwed up back and it sends pain all the way down a leg. I can't remember the name for it. But there is a device now that you strap around your calf, and it's got a bump, and that bump presses hard. You kind of tighten it down, and that bump pushes on a nerve on the back of your leg, and it blocks that pain signal instantly. And it works. It's not snake oil. It's the same thing here. Acupuncture uses the same concepts, but they actually stick a really thin needle into the nerve. But pressure on that nerve can do the same thing.
Okay. And have you ever read anything? What is the root cause of this? I mean, my wife gets it real bad too.
So one of the things that will make it worse for a lot of people. I don't either. I've been out on fishing charters. I was out on one. Normally, when I would do a fishing charter, I would just charter the boat myself, and you're out there with the captain. And but once out of the blue, I took the kids on a big fishing charter that had like 60 people on the boat. 58 of them got sick and threw up. I was one of the two that didn't. It was one of the roughest days out there I've ever seen, and it was just ugly. Everybody was sick. I didn't get sick. So I have this weird nausea issue I have to deal with from the scarring, but I've never been really susceptible to any kind of motion related. It's a mismatch of it's a movement that your brain can't process properly. And then it causes the nauseous feeling. For a lot of people, if they try to read while they're in the car, it's even worse. So for some people, they've learned tricks like if they can stare at the horizon, it will make it better. So I've heard of tricks, but it's a visual thing that causes it.
Okay, and is there any way to, in terms of like what you do with your stress, is there any way to maybe exercise something? I mean, obviously he's a young kid, so I'm not going to be able to probably explain these concepts to him.
Correct.
Is there any kind of exercise to ease the future for him?
Yeah, like I've said, it's this visual trick that some people have come up with, but your struggle here with the 5-year-old is trying to explain to him that he should try different things to see if he gets any relief.
Okay. All right. Well, that's all I had. I think this call was definitely worth what I paid for it, so I appreciate it.
Excellent. All right. Thanks for the call. All right, we're going to take the last one here. Justin, welcome.
All right, I got a hold of Polaris Labs, and the way he explained it to me was the newer engines run hotter, which causes higher level of oxidation, and the higher oxidation increases the viscosity.
Got it.
So basically, it's fighting back and forth with the fuel dilution.
Perfect. And I saw the oxidation there, and I thought for a second it didn't seem high enough to me to cause oil thickening, but I believe them. That is true. We do know that oxidation can cause the oil to thicken. I didn't think that number was high enough, so thank you, because now I learned something today too.
But he said that the fuel dilution is a true number, and so I need to get it back in the shop.
Yep. So that like I said, if he gave you an answer that when I heard it, it was logical and makes sense, then we're done. We're done. He gave you an answer that makes total sense.
All right.
Thanks for the call back. Yeah, that was excellent. Thanks. All right. We're going to wrap this up. I will see you back here on Tuesday. Be safe, be profitable, be fit and healthy. Always do the hard work and master the journey.